Chapter 4674. Damn it. Xiao Hua's expression changed. He didn't expect Princess Qingqing to be so vicious as to force him to abdicate. Thunderbolt immortal, Thunderbolt immortal. Princess Miao Miao, who was beside Princess Qingqing, was scared out of her wits. However, she finally came to her senses and hurriedly flew out. Please take pity on Qingqing. Ever since she fought with you at Dawn and Dawn Cliff, she has been thinking about you. Damn it. The Thunderbolt Immortal was furious. What does it have to do with me whether she thinks about me or not? The Thunderbolt Immortal's gentleness was naturally taught by Xiao Hua. Now that he saw Princess Qingqing's ferocious expression trying to pester him, he was naturally anxious. The Thunderbolt Immortal's human nature wasn't perfect, so he naturally didn't know about. Xiao Hua originally wanted to send a voice transmission, but Princess Xixia hurriedly said in a low voice, "No, absolutely not. If Princess Qingqing comes to the Fortune Gate, our Fortune Gate will be in chaos." Thus, Xiao Hua didn't say anything else and allowed the Thunderbolt Immortal to pester him endlessly. Mph. Immortal Emperor Gaochun's expression darkened after seeing the princess causing so much trouble. He scowled and glared at the Eastern Sea Queen standing next to him. Mph. The gathering hasn't even started yet and Princess Qingqing has already caused so much trouble. Who knows where his face has been thrown to? Immortal Emperor Gaochun scowled and glared at the Eastern Sea Queen. The East Sea Empress's face turned pale, and she lost her composure for a moment. Good. Princess Qingqing's face had already turned pale when she heard the Thunderbolt Immortal's ruthlessness. King. A rainbow sword appeared in her right hand as she wailed, "Since you don't want me, I no longer have the face to exist in this world. Thunderbolt Immortal, today, I'll die in front of you." As she said that, she pulled her right hand towards her neck and viciously cut it off. Everyone at the Jade Lake gathering was a supreme being. Stopping Princess Qingqing from committing suicide was as easy as flipping a hand. However, Xiao Hua's divine sense suddenly stopped. Princess Xixia was right next to him. Princess Qingqing had always been Princess Xixia's greatest enemy. How could he attack her without Princess Xixia's permission? In particular, during the Jade Lake Conference, Immortal Emperor Go Chen and the Eastern Sea Empress were the closest to Princess Qingqing. If the two of them didn't make a move, how could Xiao Hua make a move? As for Princess Xixia, she sneered in her heart when she saw Princess Qingqing's reaction. She was very clear about Princess Qingqing's tricks. She knew that Princess Qingqing was relying on the fact that no one would let her die for no reason at the Jade Pool gathering. That was why she threatened the Thunderbolt Immortal with her death. If it was another occasion, Princess Qingqing would definitely use another method. Since Princess Xixia and Xiao Hua had such thoughts, the Dipankara Archaic Buddha, the Maitreya Buddha, the Golden-Winged Great Rock, the Profound Armored Pentaceratops, Ao Yi, Ao Qian, and even Dongfang Qiong had such thought. As for the Eastern Sea Empress, she merely raised her hand and stopped. Although she felt sorry for Princess Qingqing, her thoughts were similar to Princess Xixia's. She also understood that the punishment Princess Qingqing was about to face might not be any better than death. If she tried to save her, Immortal Emperor Go Chen would definitely be furious. She might as well let Immortal Emperor Go Chen do it. This way, Princess Qingqing would receive less punishment. Princess Miao Miao's thoughts were similar to the Eastern Sea Empress. Although she was the closest to Princess Qingqing, her strength couldn't compare to Princess Qingqing's. Therefore, she anxiously looked at Immortal Emperor Go Chen with pleading eyes. However, when the azure sword's aura-chi landed on Princess Qingqing's snow-white neck, a trace of blood flowed out. Seeing that Princess Qingqing's beautiful head was about to be chopped off, Princess Miao Miao suddenly realized that the mean and scheming Princess Qingqing, who never allowed herself to be in danger, was serious this time. How is this possible? Princess Miao Miao instantly felt that this was extremely absurd. At the same time, she cried out in shock, Qingqing. Princess Xixia's thoughts were different from Princess Miao Miao's. She didn't think that Princess Qingqing would fall in love with the Thunderbolt Enlightened Master after meeting him once. However, she still couldn't watch Princess Qingqing commit suicide in front of her. She hurriedly urged, Hurry up and save. Xiao Hua was already accumulating his aura. When he heard Princess Zixua's order, he didn't even hear it clearly and immediately sent out his divine sense. However, before Xiao Hua's divine sense could settle down, boom, boom, boom. A series of loud explosions rang out around Princess Qingqing. That space instantly collapsed. The fluctuations of magic power, the righteous qi of the Confucian cultivators, the power of the stars and moon of the Yarrow clan, and even the Buddhist light all shattered at the same time. It turned out that when Xiao Hua made his move, the Maitreya Buddha, the golden-winged Great Peng, and the others also made their moves at the same time. The result was, no one was able to stop Princess Qingqing from committing suicide. The azure sword had already landed on Princess Qingqing's neck. Blood splattered everywhere. Damn it! Xiao Hua's figure blurred without hesitation and disappeared into thin air. However, it was already too late for him to make his move. Princess Qingqing wasn't the slightest bit attracted by the commotion around her. She only stared at the Thunderbolt Enlightened Master. Apart from risking everything in her suicide attempt, her heart was truly dead. Her eyes were filled with despair, helplessness, and desire as she stared at the Thunderbolt Enlightened Master. Unfortunately, the Thunderbolt Enlightened Master's eyes didn't change at all. He only looked at her indifferently as if he was someone unrelated to her. Alas, forget it. I'll just let this life pass. In the future, I won't join the imperial family anymore. Princess Qingqing's final thought was born. What Princess Qingqing didn't know was that the Thunderbolt Enlightened Master's heart felt like it was being pricked by needles. Traces of understanding appeared in his lifeless eyes. It seemed like he was in pain, but also seemed like he was worried. Just as Princess Qingqing was feeling disappointed, the Thunderbolt Enlightened Master's figure blurred and disappeared along with Xiao Hua. The simultaneous attack of several supreme beings was extremely powerful. The collapsed space blocked everyone's attempts to rescue Princess Qingqing. Even people as strong as Xiao Hua and the Thunderbolt Enlightened Master were unable to break through. It seemed that Princess Qingqing was really going to die. Right at this moment, an unexpected event occurred. A pitch-black silhouette of an insect that was over 10 meters in size flashed out from the collapsed space, and then a string of silhouettes that were almost 10 meters in size flashed before everyone's eyes. Swoosh! All of them struck Princess Qingqing's right cheek, azure bow sword, and even her right arm. There was no exception. A piece of Princess Qingqing's face was sliced off, the azure bow sword was slashed into two, and even her right arm and shoulder were sliced off. Princess Qingqing didn't move at all. She immediately fainted and her delicate body fell towards the bug shadow. Who is this? Everyone at the Jade Pool was shocked. The appearance of this shadow was too strange. There were no fluctuations of magic power or spatial fluctuations. It just flew out so strangely that no one noticed it. World-destroying bug. Of course, it only took a moment for the supreme beings to see it clearly. They all turned pale with fright. How did it get here? At this moment, Xiao Hua had already broken through the void fragment and appeared near the bug. He saw Princess Qingqing's body fall towards the bug, and the bug didn't hesitate to slash its sickle-like tentacles at Princess Qingqing's waist. He raised his hand without hesitation. Boom! A pale golden fist flew out and hit the bug with lightning speed. Shua! The fist landed on the strange insect's body, and the strange insect's body was immediately smashed. But at the same time, the strange insect's body swelled up again. Of course, it only flashed a few times. Peng! With a loud sound, the strange insect's body exploded. In the explosion, a lightning flashed and the Thunderbolt Enlightened Master's figure appeared. He frowned slightly and raised his hand to catch Princess Qingqing. Looking at the blood gushing out of Princess Qingqing's missing right arm and the pain between her brows, the Thunderbolt Enlightened Master had an indescribable feeling. The Thunderbolt Enlightened Master didn't hesitate. He raised his hand and pointed at Princess Qingqing's body. The gushing blood naturally stopped. At the same time, the Thunderbolt Enlightened Master took out an elixir and put it into Princess Qingqing's mouth. Once the elixir entered her mouth, color slowly returned to her face. Then, the Thunderbolt Enlightened Master raised his hand again and took out the severed arm that had fallen into the Jade Pool. He looked at it and was about to reattach it. Cough cough. Xiao Hua saw this and hurriedly coughed twice. He reminded, fellow Thunderbolt Enlightened Master, men and women shouldn't touch each other. Earlier, you were a little rude. Today, we'll save Princess Qingqing. As for the treatment, let the Immortal Palace handle it. Okay. Hearing this, the Thunderbolt Enlightened Master looked around and waved his hand, sending Princess Qingqing and her severed arm to Princess Miao Miao. Just as the Thunderbolt Enlightened Master was about to speak, he heard a panicked cry from under the peonies. This. What is this? The Thunderbolt Enlightened Master looked up and saw a group of fist-sized insects flying out of the void beside the group of maidservants who were playing the music. When they saw the maidservants, they waved their serrated tentacles. Many of the insects even waved their hind legs and looked at the maidservants. These maidservants were clearly caught off guard. They all wanted to use their abilities to block, but they didn't dare to make too much of a fuss. Thus, most of them hurriedly dodged. These strange insects were about the size of a human fist, and their tentacles and hind legs were extremely sharp. The maids were no match for them. Wherever the tentacles and hind legs passed, not only were the maids' palace robes torn, even their skin was injured. The most serious injuries were to the bone. Damn it! Seeing these maidservants injured, the Thunderbolt Enlightened Master's heart couldn't help but feel pain. He cursed and waved his hand, sending out waves of lightning that accurately hit the hundreds of strange insects. Boom boom boom! All of the strange insects rapidly expanded, producing dark green fog. However, once the fog was produced, the bodies of the strange insects couldn't shrink and they exploded one after another. Fellow Day Oist. The Thunderbolt Enlightened Master retracted his gaze from the chaotic maidservants and looked at Princess Qingqing, who was taken away by Princess Miao Miao. He asked in his heart, Is this love? Xiao Hua's heart was filled with mixed feelings. He naturally hoped that the Thunderbolt Enlightened Master would have humanity and become an independent person. However, he didn't want the Thunderbolt Enlightened Master's love to fall on a woman like Princess Qingqing. Seeing Princess Qingqing, Xiao Hua couldn't help but think of Chenyi from Dawn Rain Continent. He knew that Princess Qingqing's love for the Thunderbolt Enlightened Master was just a type of use. Love is very complicated. Xiao Hua naturally couldn't explain this most complicated emotion of the human race. He could only say half-heartedly, you still need to experience it yourself. However, I feel that it's better for you to leave. It was a pity that he had only said half a sentence in his heart. Buzz. Waves of tsunami-like sounds resounded from the surroundings of the Jade Lake. A kind of fluctuation that Xiao Hua was familiar with came from the source of this sound, and it surged towards him from all direction. This fluctuation attacked the Niwen Palace. Just as it appeared, many maidservants had already fallen. Xiao Hua's divine sense swept over and he couldn't help but be shocked. He saw that the entire space was filled with strange insects of different sizes. Among these strange insects, the small ones were as small as ink dots while the large ones were more than 10 feet long. All of them flapped their wings and pounced towards the Jade Lake. Their targets were either human or demon cultivators, or Buddhist light, lightning, or the power of the stars and moon. Damn it! Xiao Hua didn't have time to explain to the Thunderbolt Enlightened Master what love was. He cursed in his heart and his figure flashed, landing on the throne of creation. Looking at the countless strange insects wreaking havoc in the space, Xiao Hua narrowed his eyes and pondered in his heart, it seems like this Xiao's guess was correct. The black dots that I saw in the eye of the Western Sea that year were these strange insects. If that's the case, these strange insects didn't attack from the borders of the 3 continents, but from the spatial meridians of the 3 continents. In other words, the defensive line that we discussed before was completely meaningless. Since these strange insects could attack the space where the Lingyun Side Palace is located, they can naturally attack any place in the 3 continents and 4 seas. Now, we have to face many defenses. It's time to fight to the death. Immortal Emperor Gaochen was originally angered by Princess Qingqing to the point of 1 Buddha coming into being and 2 Buddhas going through nirvana. When Princess Qingqing committed suicide, he, who was the most qualified and most likely to help, instead coldly watched and didn't do anything. This was because in his eyes, Princess Ching Ching truly acted on her own and reaped what she sowed. Not only did she lose face, but the reputation of the immortal palace was also smeared. Princess Ching Ching's suicide was her best choice. However, when he saw the appearance of the strange insects and the changes that occurred, Immortal Emperor Gauchen coldly snorted and thought that he was lucky. After all, these strange insects were an excellent excuse, especially when Xiao Hua and the Thunderbolt Immortal made a move. It was also a good way out. However, before Immortal Emperor Gauchen could say anything, even more strange insects attacked, not giving him a chance to speak. Seeing the panicked maids, Immortal Emperor Gauchen was somewhat angry. He slapped the phantom of the golden throne below him. Boom! 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 A huge explosion resounded as a beam of light that resembled a dragon or tiger rushed into the sky. Bang! 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 Countless fine explosions resounded. In the space to the north where the Confucian cultivators were located, an area of several thousand feet in size, all of the strange insects were killed. Calm down, calm down. Immortal Emperor Gauchen's oppressive voice resounded in the Jade Lake. This is the Jade Lake gathering. All the Supremes are here. What are you afraid of? Unfortunately, before Immortal Emperor Gauchen could finish, a miserable scream resounded. Below the peony bush that was the furthest away from Immortal Emperor Gauchen, a strange insect that was several jong long strangely rushed out from the void. Its sharp hind legs, in the blink of an eye, chopped off the arm of a maid with a low cultivation. The maid screamed and fainted. At the same time, the strange insect's tail came out from the maid's back and stabbed into her heart. There was a flash of blood at the tip of the tail, and the woman's chest withered instantly. Namo Amitabha. To the side, Namo Wisdom Manjushri didn't dare to be careless. He quickly chanted a Buddhist chant and formed a mudra with both hands. Boom! A Buddhist light flowed and entered the strange insect's body. The entire body of the strange insect seemed to be plated with this Buddhist light. It was golden and dazzling. Then, its entire body suddenly expanded. In the blink of an eye, the strange insect was more than 10 feet in size. At the same time, a layer of dark green mist seeped out from the grayish-white spots on the strange insect's body. Then, its body shrank rapidly. However, it stopped after shrinking for a few feet. Chirp, chirp. The strange insect made a hissing sound as if it was happy. It abandoned the maid and pounced on Manjushri Bodhisattva. This Nanwu wise Manjushri is surprised when he sees the light of Buddha around the strange insect. The green mist is intertwined with the light of Buddha and it looks very weird. He knew that his cultivation was not enough, but he really didn't expect that his Buddhist mudra not only didn't harm the strange insect, but also allowed it to evolve. Amidst his astonishment, Namo Wisdom Manjushri raised his hand and touched the light behind his head. A strand of faith light turned into a sword ray and entered the strange insect's body. Namo Wisdom Manjushri didn't believe that a strange insect could bear the power of faith of the Buddhism sect. However, Namo Wisdom Manjushri still underestimated the magical power of this strange insect. As the faith light fell, the strange insect's body immediately became transparent. Layers of Buddhist light seeped in from the outside. Then, a light shadow like a Buddha statue appeared in the strange insect's body. At this time, the strange insect's body expanded again. 150 feet, 200 feet, 300 feet. Namometria. Seeing that the strange insect's body was expanding and the light shadow of the Buddha statue in its body was becoming clearer, Namometria put his palms together and chanted a Buddhist chant. Buddha in all living things is nothing more than this. Although this strange insect came from the outer region, with the Buddhist light and faith, it can also become a Buddha. Boom! Amidst the Metria Buddha's chanting, the strange insect finally couldn't control its body that was swollen by the power of faith and finally exploded. While Namo Wisdom Manjushri was killing the strange insect, Sun Jian, Heavenly King Qingyu, and Heavenly King Fu Yu were also enraged by Immortal Emperor Gauchen. They quickly flew out and waved their weapons to kill the strange insect. At the same time, they also ordered the guards outside of the Jade Lake to come in and resist. Rumble. At the location of the golden-winged peng and the black-armored pentaceratops, Waves of cold power of the stars and moon shot up to the sky like pillars of light. Under these pillars of light, all the strange insects were killed. Even the Armageddon strange insects that were attracted by the light pillar of stars and moon rapidly expanded and exploded when they came into contact with the power of the stars and moon. If the pillars of light of the demon race's great saint were so powerful, then there was no need to mention Xiaohua's lightning. The lightning was like tens of millions of flying swords and instantly killed all the strange insects south of the Jade Lake. Although the Dragon Island and the Buddhist sect also used their methods to kill most of the strange insects that appeared before the Immortal Palace, the Great Sage Hall, and the Fortune Gate, the strange insects seemed to be endless. They rushed out of the void like moths to a flame and pounced on the divine abilities of the Supremes. Immortal Emperor Go Chen's expression was very ugly. After he shouted "Calm down," he didn't say anything else and only watched everything that was happening at the Jade Lake with a heavy expression. Of course, the immortal soldiers and generals of the Immortal Palace were also well trained. At the beginning, it was only the maids with weak cultivation who panicked. After the immortal soldiers and generals appeared, they began to organize an effective defense and gradually killed the strange insect. Your Majesty. Xiaohua urged the lightning to protect the southern region. Seeing the countless strange insects flying out, he thought of something and said with a smile, "Earlier, I told you about the strength of these strange insects and also mentioned how to kill them. I'm sure Your Majesty can see that the Supremes didn't believe me. Now that these strange insects have come to disturb the gathering at the Jade Lake, isn't this a chance for us to test them?" Chenph. Immortal Emperor Go Chen snorted coldly. It was obvious that he still held a grudge against the Thunderbolt Immortal. However, after he snorted, he said, "Heavenly King Qingyu, set up the formations. Use the Cloud Mist formation, the Tiger Roar formation, and the Flying Crane formation to deal with the attacks of the strange insect. Let's see how strong these strange insects are and what methods can be used to kill them." "Yes, Your Majesty." Hearing this, Heavenly King Qingyu didn't dare to be negligent and hurriedly ordered, "Everyone, release the Cloud Mist formation." "Yes." The immortal soldiers and generals blocked and killed the strange insects while flying and forming an origin formation. As soon as the origin formation was formed, countless mighty pillars of qi fell from the sky. Layers of clouds emerged from the nearby space and shrouded the strange insects like clouds. Swish, swish, swish. Wherever the clouds passed, it was as if thousands of guillotines were chopping down. The strange insects that were enveloped by the clouds were all cut in half. The corpses of the strange insects fell down like leaves. "I don't think this will work," Xiaohua said indifferently. "Not necessarily." Immortal Emperor Gaochen replied coldly, "My Immortal Palace's Cloud Mist formation. Unfortunately, before Immortal Emperor Go Chen could finish his words, rustle rustle rustle. The millions of insect corpses that had yet to fall into the Jade Lake suddenly emitted strange ripples. Then, the two halves of the insect corpses came back to life. These shapeless insects formed a formation and like a black fog, they fell onto the Jade Lake. Zzzzzzzzz. Strange noises appeared again as the space above the Jade Lake began to shatter. These strange insects were actually devouring the Heaven-Earth origin qi and other things attached to the space. The East Sea Empress frowned and raised her hand to summon the Jade Lake's waves. However, Immortal Emperor Gaochen ordered indifferently, "Don't be hasty. Don't kill them yet. Master Xiao Lei is right. The strange insects attacking the Jade Lake is indeed a disappointing matter, but it is also a rare opportunity. Everyone here is the Supremes of the various sects, so there is no suspense about the outcome of this battle. Let's see. What kind of ability these strange insects have to destroy the world?" "Yes, Your Majesty." The East Sea Empress nodded and stared at the strange insects above the Jade Lake. The insects were densely packed and most of them were only a few inches in size. However, as Immortal Emperor Gaochen spoke, these strange insects had already devoured the space. Waves of strange ripples came from other parts of the space as the Heaven-Earth origin qi automatically repaired the spatial crack. Strands of grayish-black light appeared above the Jade Lake's waves. When the light appeared, some of the strange insects were sucked into the light and disappeared. However, even more of them flapped their wings and pounced on the Jade Lake's waves. Chirp, chirp. Chirp. Like silkworms devouring mulberry leaves, the Jade Lake's waves dropped by half a foot. Chirp. Chirp. When the strange insects recovered, they screeched and rushed into the sky again. They either pounced on the immortal soldiers and immortal generals or the pearls formed by the heaven-earth origin chi. None of them were quiet. Heavenly King Fu Yu's expression slightly changed when he saw the strange insects rampaging again. He looked at Heavenly King Qing Yu and waved his hand, ordering, "Brothers, set up the tiger roar formation." Yes. The immortal soldiers and immortal generals received the order and moved their bodies to change the formation again. A moment later, a tricolored origin formation appeared above the Jade Lake. Roar. A roar came from the origin formation as a shadow that was several thousand feet tall flew out with the roar. This shadow looked like a tiger but was not one. It had a pair of wings on its back. The moment this shadow appeared, thousands of vast chi pillars fell from the sky. Then, the shadow gradually solidified and pounced on the strange insects that were like black cloud. Wherever this tiger shadow passed, the space was also torn apart. All the auras were disturbed as a chilling aura shrouded the nearby area. Unfortunately, the strange insects that were shrouded were not afraid of death. As soon as the tiger-shaped shadow solidified, they began to fly toward the shadow. Even the strange insects that were not shrouded were attracted by the aura of the Great Spirit Pillar. They spread their wings and flew out. Puff, puff, puff. Wherever the shadow landed, tens of thousands of strange insects were killed. They either turned into powder or were smashed into pieces. There were even more that were torn apart. After the shadow, the strange insects that were attracted to it swarmed over and landed everywhere on the shadow. Rustle, rustle, rustle. The sound of leaves being eaten was heard again. The tiger shadow suddenly became much dimmer. Damn it. Immortal Emperor Go Chen saw this and knew that the tiger roar formation was not effective either. Everyone. Heavenly King Qing Yu also frowned and gave the order to change the formation again. In the time it took to eat a meal, the Immortal Palace set up 10 different origin formations. Although the effects of each origin formation were different, none of the origin formations were very effective. Moreover, after the time it took to eat a meal, the strange insects that were only a few feet tall had grown to dozens of feet tall. They were much more powerful than before. Rather than saying that the Immortal Palace was testing the strange insects, it was more accurate to say that the Immortal Palace was using the origin formations to feed the strange insect. Finally, Xiao Hua raised his voice and said, "Your Majesty, the immortal soldiers and immortal generals should form an origin formation to fight against the world-destroying strange insects rather than fighting alone. However, if you want to have the same effect as dealing with ordinary strange insects, it's impossible. Based on my previous experience of fighting against strange insects, I'm afraid that I can only use the heaven and earth essence energy that exceeds the absorption limit of the strange insects to stuff them to death. The question is, where is the absorption limit of these strange insects?" Aoyi also frowned and said, "Back then, after the strange insects appeared in the stacked Jade Legacy realm, the elders of my Dragon Island also discussed this matter. According to the description of the escaped dragons, this thing seems to be even more powerful than Long Sai. The damage of the body and the attacks of Dharma powers are all ineffective. Only the dragon aura can explode it. Everyone, please wait a moment." When the golden-winged roc heard this, he said, "Let me see if this strange insect can devour the power of the stars and moon." As he spoke, the golden-winged roc waved his wings. A thumb-sized pillar of starlight and moonlight emerged from his body and pierced towards a strange insect like a sword. Sage Rock. The Lord of the East Ocean, Ao Chen, did not know whether to laugh or cry. He pointed at the Demon Mountain peak with his dragon claw and said, "Why are you testing it? Aren't there already thousands of strange insects devouring the pillar of starlight and moonlight above your head?" Boom. The golden-winged roc naturally ignored Ao Chen. The pillar of starlight and moonlight landed on the strange insect. The strange insect also suddenly expanded and produced a dark green fog. Its body slowly shrank. It was obvious that it was devouring the pillar of starlight and moonlight. However, in just a moment, the strange insect's body exploded. "Damn it, this is troublesome," the golden-winged roc shouted. It's not a problem for me to kill these strange insects. It should not be a problem for those demon kings and great demons, but what about ordinary demon generals? This strange insect really has the ability to destroy the world. Xiao Hua smiled coldly and said, "Of course. Otherwise, how could we have seen the apocalyptic warning sign when we were in Longevity Town? Even if it has the ability to destroy the world, so what?" Immortal Emperor Gauchen was still disdainful towards the strange insect. All living things in the world have the ability to reinforce and counter each other. Although these strange insects are powerful, they definitely have a weakness. It's just that we don't know about it. Moreover, within the 3 continents, the strongest is at the peak of 9th level essence energy. No matter how many of these strange insects there are. At this point, Immortal Emperor Gauchen was suddenly shocked. He seemed to have thought of something and shut his mouth. What Immortal Emperor Gauchen thought of, Xiao Hua and the others also thought of. Everyone's expression changed. After all, there were too many strange insects to count. Who could guarantee that there wouldn't be any monsters at the peak of 9th level essence energy? If there were only 1 or 2 peak level strange insects, they would not be afraid. However, with so many strange insects, how many peak level strange insects would appear? At this moment, everyone had some understanding. Just these low-level strange insects might not be able to trigger the apocalyptic warning sign. There must be many peak-level strange insects appearing to trigger the apocalyptic warning sign. Namo Mettria Buddha. Namo Mettria Buddha placed his palms together and said, "My Buddha is merciful. There is a Tao in heaven and earth. There will always be a trace of life in the midst of all difficulties. Although these strange insects are powerful, Your Majesty is right. Heavenly horses also have a weakness. Today is a good opportunity. Let's take a look at these strange insects and see where their weakness is." When he heard up to here, Xiao Hua suddenly thought in his heart as he recalled the strange mosquito he'd encountered in the exquisite pagoda that overturned illusions while he was in the ruins. That day, when Xiao Hua subdued the mosquito, he asked it a question. That question was, other than using more heaven and earth essence energy than you can bear to make you explode, other than your natural enemy, what other methods are there to kill you? The reason why Xiao Hua asked this question was because he had encountered a strange insect before. The strength of the strange insect made Xiao Hua shudder. Therefore, when Xiao Hua saw a mosquito that looked similar to the strange insect, he couldn't help but ask about it. That mosquito didn't seem to be willing to answer, but it was forced by Xiao Hua to say a few methods. At that time, Xiao Hua secretly shook his head. He felt that those methods were too harsh. The reason was that to kill the mosquito, it needed a different kind of heaven and earth essence energy, because strange insects like the mosquito and the strange insect ate heaven and earth essence energy, they could devour all kinds of heaven and earth essence energy. Who knew what kind of heaven and earth essence energy was different to them? Therefore, Xiao Hua let the mosquito go. Now, when he encountered the strange insect again, Xiao Hua naturally thought of this. However, with all the sovereigns present, the heaven and earth essence energy, the righteous energy, the power of the stars and moon, the power of faith, the Buddha's light, and so on, they all appeared at the jade pool. These strange insects also had a strange appetite. They devoured all kinds of true energy, so they weren't afraid of having a bad appetite. However, since this was a method to kill the strange insect, Xiao Hua couldn't not tell the sovereigns. Therefore, Xiao Hua hurriedly said, "Everyone, since these strange insects devour true energy, we can only rely on true energy to make them explode. Then let's think about it another way. If there is any true energy that the strange insect can't devour, wouldn't it be killed?" Wonderful. The golden-winged Great Peng clapped and shouted, "Dragon Teacher Xiao's idea is really unimaginable. Let me think. Besides the power of the stars and moon, what else do I know? Coo-coo." As the golden-winged Great Peng spoke, his entire abdomen suddenly emitted a strange sound. Then, the golden-winged Great Peng opened his mouth again. Woo! A demonic energy mixed with purple and gold rushed out, piercing through the void and directly piercing into the shell of a strange insect that was a few feet in size. A cluster of red lotus hellfire flickered, and the power of reincarnation fell on several strange insects. Boom! Where the red lotus hellfire fell, the strange insect's shell was immediately ignited. GG. The strange insect hissed, as if it was in pain. Seeing this, Xiao Hua and the others couldn't help but be overjoyed. However, right at this moment, the green mist gushed out from the strange insect's shell once again, extinguishing the red lotus hellfire. Moreover, after the hellfire was extinguished, it didn't disappear. Instead, it transformed into wisps of blood-red viscous substance that seeped into the strange insect's shell, causing the strange insect to swell up once again. Amitabha. The Dipankara archaic Buddha raised his brows and exclaimed in shock. He knew that if the strange insect could even devour the power of reincarnation, the Thunderclap Temple wouldn't have any methods to restrain it. Kill. The Thunderbolt Immortal roared. He raised his hand, and sword-like lightning flashed, killing the strange insect on behalf of the Dipankara archaic Buddha. Oh! Xiao Hua looked at the Thunderbolt Immortal strangely. If it was in the past, the Thunderbolt Immortal might consider for himself or the Fortune Gate's disciples. However, he would never consider for others. Now, the Thunderbolt Immortal actually thought that the Dipankara archaic Buddha was the Buddha Lord, and that it wasn't appropriate for him to commit murder. Instead, he killed the strange insect on behalf of the Dipankara archaic Buddha. Wasn't this the sign of his awakening? However, after the Thunderbolt Immortal killed the strange insect, he retracted his hand and calmly stood at the side. Daoist, would you like to give it a try? Xiao Hua looked at the heavenly being and smiled. Your three lights augmenting thunder might be the nemesis of these strange insect. That's right. I'll go take a look. Hearing this, the heavenly being smiled proudly and flew out of the mountain peak. Seeing the heavenly being flying out, a swarm of strange insects immediately pounced on him. These strange insects emitted extremely faint yet powerful fluctuations that surrounded the heavenly being. The heavenly being's expression didn't change. He let out a long roar and revealed his 3 heads and 6 arms. Roar. The 3 heads opened their mouths and shot out 3 light pillars. Pa 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 pa. Wherever the light pillars passed, tens of thousands of strange insects would swell and explode. Of course, it was only swell. None of them were destroyed due to the difference in the true chi contained within the light pillars. Catcher. Seeing that the 3 light pillars didn't have any effect, the heavenly being couldn't help but feel angry. He raised his 6 arms at the same time, and dozens of different colored lightning balls appeared out of thin air and landed around him. Rumble. In the huge rumbling sound, the strange insects that pounced on the heavenly being were all killed. And Xiao Hua also saw clearly that these strange insects were all swell and explode. Damn it, this is really strange. The heavenly being cursed. His figure flashed, and he landed beside the throne of creation again. He said, even this daddy's method is useless. Then in these 3 continents, where can there be heaven and earth origin energy that these strange insects can't devour? Seeing that the heavenly being's method was also useless, Xiao Hua couldn't help but feel a chill in his heart. No one knew better than him that the heavenly being's method came from the immortal realm. The divine ability that he cultivated was from the heavenly being clan. If his method couldn't easily kill these strange insects, then in the entire 3 continents, there really wasn't any method that could easily kill these strange insects. Maybe. Xiao Hua thought to himself, only soul cultivation method. Thinking about soul cultivation methods, Xiao Hua smiled wryly. He had encountered these strange insects when he was condensing his nascent soul in the void. Although he was only a nascent soul at that time, and the strange insects were only a few feet long, he had already used the lightning flash and thunder roll technique, and the lightning bolts activated by the green seal characters were also devoured by the strange insects. Now that Xiao Hua's soul cultivation had reached grand completion, he could easily kill these strange insects, and even soul cultivation methods could easily kill them, but he couldn't find the insect's weakness from the root. Let's give it a try. Xiao Hua didn't give up. He waved his hand, and the soul cultivator's 3 corpses yin thunder fell down. Rumble. The strange insects in the distance were killed, but there were no signs that they would be destroyed upon contact. Clearly, this was not a method that Xiao Hua wanted to use. Then, Ao Yi, Ao Qian, the black-armored Pentaceratops, Metria Buddha, and the world sovereign all used their own secret techniques to investigate, but unfortunately, it was not ideal. Take a look at my methods. Immortal Emperor Gauchen saw that everyone was somewhat helpless, and finally said, after my immortal palace obtained the 5 Qis origin technique, I also benefited a lot. The 5 Qis of my Confucian cultivation are the foundation of heaven and earth, the foundation of humanity, so it must be different from ordinary heaven and earth origin energy. Your Majesty's words are reasonable. Xiao Hua gave him a high hat and said with a smile, I will wait for your Majesty's method. Chemph. Immortal Emperor Gauchen raised his hand and patted the crown on his head. Boom. A 5-colored Qi pillar gushed out, and then the 5-colored Qi pillar brushed down from the sky, turning into hundreds of thousands of tiny Qi pillars. These Qi pillars were like needles that pierced into the bodies of the 100,000 strange insects. Woo! The 5-colored Qi entered the bodies of the strange insects, and the bodies of the strange insects immediately swelled up. Moreover, the moment they swelled up, some of them were dark green, some of them were like grey fog, and all of them were seen gushing out. Boom! The bodies of these strange insects swelled up a lot, and then they all exploded. The third place tearfully asks for subscriptions. If the subscriptions exceed 1,000, the immortal world will be opened. Next, I ask for monthly votes. If the monthly votes exceed 100, I will add more chapters. Third, I ask for recommendation support. If the recommendation exceeds 1,000, I will add more chapters. How Xiao Hua went against the light to become a saint, it is completely up to everyone. The third place thanks. Chapter 4675. Cuckoo. As the golden-winged great rock spoke, its abdomen suddenly emitted a strange sound. Then, the golden-winged great rock opened its mouth again. Woo! A demonic aura mixed with purplish gold rushed out, piercing through the void and directly piercing into the shell of a strange insect that was several feet large. The demonic qi pierced into the strange insect's metallic shell like a needle. However, when the strange insect suddenly expanded, and a dark green mist surged out, Xiao Hua shook his head. Sure enough, the strange insect instantly grew 10 times larger. The dark green mist swirled around the strange insect for a moment, but the strange insect's body didn't shrink at all. Chirp, chirp. The strange insect hissed. Its 2 long hind legs drew a line in the air, and the entire body of the strange insect disappeared. At this moment, a miserable shriek sounded. On the side of the origin formation in the distance, a somewhat absent-minded immortal soldier was split in half. After the miserable shriek, the strange insect that was several dozen feet long loftily appeared on the head of the immortal soldier's corpse. The tip of the strange insect's tail had already reached out from the void and pierced towards the corpse's heart. Damn it! The golden-winged great rock cursed inwardly when he saw that his demonic qi was more effective than the power of the stars and moon. Then, an obscure power of the stars and moon appeared near the strange insect and pierced into it like a sharp awl. Boom! The strange insect was annihilated, leaving not even a corpse behind. Ha ha, my demon race's demonic qi, and even dragon qi, might be more effective than normal heaven and earth's essence qi against this strange insect. The profound armored pentahorned dragon smiled and said, the rock sage's probing is extremely effective. In the future, when my 1,000 demons sacred grounds demon race and the dragon race of the Dragon Island fight against these strange insects, you must be careful. Amitabha. The Dipankara archaic Buddha chanted and said softly, let me give it a try. Following his chanting, the Dipankara archaic Buddha raised his palms. Whoosh! A cluster of red lotus karmic fire flickered, and the power of samsara landed on a few strange insect. Boom! The karmic fire of the red lotus immediately ignited the strange insect's body. Chirp, chirp! The strange insect hissed as if it was in pain. Xiao Hua and the others were overjoyed when they saw this and were about to take a closer look. However, at this moment, the green mist gushed out of the strange insect's shell again. The red lotus karmic fire was immediately extinguished. However, after the karmic fire was extinguished, it did not disappear. Instead, it turned into a scarlet viscous substance that seeped into the strange insect's shell. The strange insect grew bigger again. Amitabha, Amitabha. The Dipankara archaic Buddha raised his eyebrows and exclaimed in surprise. He knew that if this strange insect could even devour the power of samsara, the Thunder Sound Temple would have no means of restraining it. Kill. The Thunderbolt Immortal let out a low roar. With a point of his finger, sword-like thunderbolts slayed the strange bug on behalf of the Dipankara archaic Buddha. Oh! Xiao Hua looked at the Thunderbolt Immortal strangely. If it was in the past, the Thunderbolt Immortal might consider for himself or the Fortune Gate's disciples. However, he would never consider for others. Now, the Thunderbolt Immortal actually thought that the Dipankara archaic Buddha was the Buddha Lord and that it was inappropriate for him to commit murder. Instead, he killed the strange insect on behalf of the Dipankara archaic Buddha. Wasn't this the sign of his awakening? However, after the Thunderbolt Immortal killed the strange insect, he retracted his hand and calmly stood at the side. Would you like to give it a try? Xiao Hua looked at the heavenly man and smiled. Your 3 lights augmenting thunder might be the nemesis of these strange insect. That's right. I'll go take a look. Hearing this, the heavenly man smiled proudly and flew out of the mountain peak. Seeing the heavenly man fly out, a swarm of strange insects immediately pounced on him. These strange insects emitted extremely faint yet powerful ripples that surrounded the heavenly man. The heavenly man's expression didn't change. He roared towards the sky and revealed his 3 heads and 6 arms. Roar! The 3 heads opened their mouths and shot out 3 light pillars. Pa 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 pa! Wherever the light pillars passed, tens of thousands of strange insects would swell and explode. Of course, they only swell. Not a single one of them died because of the difference in the true chi contained in the light pillars. Catcher! Seeing that the 3 light pillars had no effect, the heavenly man couldn't help but feel furious. He raised his 6 arms at the same time, and dozens of different colored lightning balls appeared out of thin air and landed around him. Rumble! Amidst loud explosions, the strange insects that pounced on the heavenly man were all killed. Xiao Hua could clearly see that these strange insects had all exploded from the swelled-up motherfucker. This is really strange. The heavenly man cursed. His figure flashed, and he landed next to the throne of creation again. He said, even my method is useless. Then in these 3 continents, where is the origin energy of heaven and earth that these strange insects can't devour? Seeing that the heavenly man's method was also useless, Xiao Hua couldn't help but feel a chill in his heart. No one knew better than him that the heavenly man's method came from the God realm. The divine ability he cultivated was from the heavenly man clan. If his method couldn't easily kill these strange insects, then in the 3 continents, there really wasn't any method that could easily kill these strange insects. Maybe. Xiao Hua thought to himself. Only soul cultivation methods can be used. Thinking of soul cultivation methods, Xiao Hua smiled bitterly. He had encountered these strange insects when he was condensing his nascent soul in the void. Although Xiao Hua was only a nascent soul at that time, and the strange insects were only a few feet long, Xiao Hua had already used the lightning flash and thunder roll technique, and the lightning bolts activated by the green seal characters were also swallowed by the strange insects. Now that Xiao Hua had reached great success in soul cultivation, he could easily kill these strange insects, and even soul cultivation methods could easily kill them, but he couldn't find the insect's weakness from the root. Let's give it a try. Xiao Hua didn't give up. He waved his hand, and the soul cultivator's 3 corpses yin thunder fell down. Rumble. The strange insects in the distance were killed, but there were no signs of them being destroyed upon contact. Obviously, this was not Xiao Hua's method. Then, Ao Yi, Ao Qian, Mystic Armored Pentaceratops, Metria Buddha, and the others all used their own secret techniques to investigate, but unfortunately, it was not idea. Take a look at my method. Immortal Emperor Gaochen looked at the helpless crowd, and finally said, after my immortal palace obtained the 5 energies origin technique, I also benefited greatly. The 5 energies of Confucian cultivators are the foundation of heaven and earth, the foundation of humanity, so it must be different from ordinary heaven and earth origin energy. Your Majesty's words are reasonable. Xiao Hua flattered him and said with a smile, I will wait for your Majesty's method. Chemph. Immortal Emperor Gaochen raised his hand and patted the crown on his head. Boom. A 5-colored energy pillar gushed out. Then, the 5-colored energy pillar brushed down from the sky and turned into hundreds of thousands of tiny energy pillars. These energy pillars were like needles that pierced into the bodies of the strange insects. Woo! When the five-colored energy entered the bodies of the strange insects, the bodies of the strange insects immediately swelled up. Moreover, the moment they swelled up, some were dark green, some were like gray fog, and some were like gray fog. Boom! The bodies of these strange insects swelled up a lot, and then they all exploded. Sigh. Xiao Hua's eyes originally lit up, but the joy immediately disappeared. He understood in his heart that even though immortal Emperor Go Chen condensed the 5 Chi's origin Qi pillar to a very fine degree, it was still the terrifying power condensed within the Qi needle that was able to explode the strange insect, and not the 5-colored true Qi. Your Majesty, Xiao Hua said, what I thought was just a whimsical thought. How could there be different types of energy within the same realm? This matter. Let's not talk about it anymore. How about this? Let's see how the strength of these strange insects is distributed. Immortal Emperor Gauchen nodded and replied, I also feel that using different types of energy to kill these strange insects is a bit unimaginable and too difficult. We should use normal methods. As for the difference in strength that Master Xiao Hua mentioned, the Sun family and the others already had some judgment. Sun Jian, come over and tell us. Yes, Your Majesty. Sun Jian received the order and flew over. He bowed and said, Seniors, according to what Junior and Junior's subordinates found out, these strange insects' strength should be divided according to the size of their body. Currently, the insects besieging the Jade Lake are mostly several feet long. The strength of these strange insects is around the 5th stage of the origin energy of our 3-continent. Hiss. When the golden-winged rock heard this, he couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air and said in shock, Sun Jian, you're not wrong, right? These several feet long strange insects have the strength of our demon race's star-plucking realm? Alright, Rock Sage knows. It's exactly like this. Sun Jian turned to the golden-winged rock and said respectfully, back then, when Junior's origin energy was at the lower stage of the 5th stage, I encountered a several feet long strange insect. At that time, Junior was almost unable to defeat that strange insect. How can this be? The mystic armored Pentaceratops was also surprised. So many strange insects. If they were placed in the 1000 Demons' sacred realm, wouldn't our demon race be defeated? Not only that. Sun Jian said again, these strange insects advance by devouring all kinds of energy. The time it takes to advance is extremely short. As long as the energy doesn't make the strange insects explode, these strange insects can advance. Moreover, using normal methods. Even if the strange insects are torn apart, these torn parts can rely on the energy they devour to recover into several strange insect. What about the other sizes? Xiao Hua had already expected this, but he still asked in a low voice. Sun Jian replied, a foot long is an inch long. Strange insects several inches long have the strength of a 4th stage origin energy. Strange insects less than an inch long are just black dots, and these black dots, Junior has also tested, they have the strength of a 2nd or 3rd stage origin energy, an army of hundreds of millions of 2nd stage origin energy. Thinking about the densely packed black dots he saw in the space, Xiao Hua's heart turned cold. He thought with some despair, even if all of my Fortune Gate's disciples come out, even if all of my Fortune Gate's 9 elders come out together, even if all of the 3 continents human race and demonic beast race, the 4 seas dragon race and sea tribe, I'm afraid they still won't be able to exterminate this world-destroying insect army. How could immortal Emperor Gauchen and the others not know about Xiao Hua's thoughts? The various supremes' expressions changed again. Sun Jian looked at Xiao Hua's gloomy face and said, a foot long is a foot long. Strange insects several feet long have the strength of a 6th stage origin energy. Strange insects several hundred feet long have the strength of a 7th stage origin energy. As for 1,000 feet long and 1,000 feet long strange insects, Junior has not seen them, so I do not dare to make a judgment. So what if they are 1,000 feet long and 1,000 feet long strange insects? Dongfang Qianghao sneered, they are nothing more than 8th or 9th stage origin energy. Could there be a 10,000 feet long strange insect? Xiao Hua looked at Dongfang Qianghao and said with a smile, Dongfang family head, aren't you too optimistic? Previously, we didn't know how these strange insects advanced. We thought that they cultivated the same way as us, and that every time they advanced, there would only be 1 in 10,000. Thus, when we reached the higher levels, there were fewer and fewer of them. But now, we understand that these strange insects advance by devouring true energy, and there are no bottlenecks during their advancement. In other words, as long as there is enough true energy, every black dot can advance to 1,000 feet long. They can become monsters that can stand shoulder to shoulder with us 9th stage origin energy experts. How is that possible? Dongfang Qiong still shook his head and said in disbelief, "These strange insects are from outside the realm, but the place they came from is at most similar to the realm of our 3 continents. This old man does not believe that a realm can have countless experts that have reached the peak of that realm." Who? Just as Dongfang Qiong was shaking his head, a cold wind appeared out of nowhere, and an indescribable aura of destruction came from somewhere in the void. Even someone as strong as Xiao Hua could not help but tremble. Not good. Thunderbolt Immortal roared, "It seems like something powerful is coming." Xiao Hua stood up and took out the Kunlun mirror without hesitation, and said to Princess Zixia, "Return to the Kunlun Immortal realm and hide for a while." "Okay." Princess Zixia nodded, but said, however, "Bayan is at the Immortal Palace. You have to think of a way to ensure her safety." "Empress." Xiao Hua thought and hurriedly transmitted, "Where is Bayan? I will let Thunderbolt Immortal bring her back." "Bayan is with Ching Ching and Miao Miao." The East Sea Empress expression also changed slightly, and her eyes flashed with a clear light as she looked around and answered casually. Hearing the 2 words Ching Ching, Xiao Hua gritted his teeth and glared at the East Sea Empress, then put Princess Zixia into the space. It was also at this moment that a dark ray of light suddenly appeared in the sky. With a swoosh, it struck the mountain where the Immortal Palace was located. This ray of light came too suddenly. Even though Immortal Emperor Gauchen and the East Sea Empress were on high alert, they still couldn't guard against it. Boom! Where the light landed, there was a huge explosion, and the scroll seemed to be torn apart by a giant hand. Layer upon layer of cracks, the inscriptions on the armor mixed with a 5-colored light gushed out from the cracks. GG. With an ear-piercing screech, a huge mouth stretched out from the void, and swallowed the light and the inscriptions on the armor. Then, 2 pitch-black eyes appeared in the sky, and finally, a strange insect that was several thousand feet long, like a huge flying boat, slowly appeared. The moment the strange insect appeared, a powerful aura overflowed from its body, and filled the entire Jade Lake. Its 3,000 feet long hind legs slightly slashed in the air, and the broken peony bushes were instantly cut in half. Seeing the strange insect devouring the scroll mountain with a ka sound, Xiao Hua suddenly came to a realization. Thinking of the vision he saw when he entered this space, he didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Damn it, this Xiao understands now. This Lingyun Side Palace did not originally exist in this space. It was because Immortal Emperor Go Chen wanted to hold the Jade Lake gathering here that he created this space to store the Lingyun Side Palace. Xin also made it clear that the Jade Lake was only an immortal imperial treasure controlled by the Imperial Empress, and it also needed to absorb the righteous energy in this place. The 5-colored scene I saw when I entered was the scene of the Jade Lake and the Lingyun Side Palace absorbing the righteous energy from the void. These strange insects love to eat true energy, and the righteous energy in this space is naturally their favorite food. It is also because of the Jade Lake gathering that these strange insects were attracted here. Kill. Seeing the strange insect swallow the scroll mountain and the entire space trembling, Heavenly King Qing Yu did not dare to be careless and quickly ordered the soldiers to attack. Unfortunately, before he could finish his words, a chill ran down his spine. He did not hold any hope as his body swayed and disappeared into thin air. Pluff. The moment his body disappeared, a huge tail appeared in the distance, and it instantly shattered the entire image. Ah! A few thousand feet away, Heavenly King Qing Yu screamed as he flew out from the void. His armor had been shattered, and there was even blood flowing from his mouth and nose. The strange insect had struck the phantom, and even Heavenly King Qing Yu had been injured. Heavenly King Qing Yu managed to dodge the attack, but the immortal soldiers and generals not far away were not so lucky. The tail pierced through Heavenly King Ching Yu's illusory figure and charged into the origin formation formed by the immortal soldiers and generals. The origin formation collapsed upon contact, and thousands of immortal soldiers were instantly killed. Moreover, after the soldiers were killed, their bodies immediately withered. HMPH. Immortal Emperor Go Chen was sitting on his golden throne. He coldly scowled and suddenly slammed his golden throne. Boom. The golden throne emitted layers of golden light and flew straight up into the sky. Dang! The vast void bell that had disappeared earlier reappeared. With a loud bang, a shadow of several thousand feet in size fell down from the sky. Rumble, rumble, rumble. The shadow completely covered the body of the strange insect and issued loud explosions. The void where the strange insect was completely shattered by the sound of the bell. The body of the strange insect was also destroyed inch by inch and turned into nothingness. Looking at the almost chaotic space, Immortal Emperor Go Chen proudly said, "A 9th-level origin energy insect. Is only SOSO. Boom." Before he could finish speaking, a loud explosion came from behind him. The golden throne that Immortal Emperor Go Chen was sitting on was hit by a huge black tail. The powerful force and the sharpness of the tail that could pierce through the laws of space immediately flipped Immortal Emperor Go Chen and his golden throne over. No way, right? Not to mention Xiao Hua's group, even Immortal Emperor Go Chen himself was shocked. The body of the strange insect that was killed by the vast void bell appeared behind Immortal Emperor Go Chen's back. Dong! At this time, the vast void bell let out another loud bang. Immortal Emperor Go Chen looked up in horror and saw that the back leg of the strange insect that was like a guillotine had disappeared into the void. It actually went through the maze of the Jade Lake and struck the vast void bell. Inside the bell, Immortal Emperor Go Chen could clearly see that a deep crack was carved into the surface of the vast void bell. The inscriptions on the bell were split into 2 halves. Damn it! Immortal Emperor Go Chen's heart ached. He cursed and quickly hid the vast void bell into the depths of the origin formation. Then, he reached out and grabbed the Emperor's sword at his waist. However, he only held it for a moment before letting it go. He knew that the Emperor's sword was extremely powerful because it contained the fate of the human race, the fate of the Confucian cultivators. This fate was useful against the human race and the demon race. However, if it was used against the strange insect, it might not be effective. Immortal Emperor Go Chen pondered for a while and looked at the Eastern Ocean Queen. The Eastern Ocean Queen understood his intention. The two of them slapped the phantom of the golden throne at the same time. Boom! 2 rays of golden light shot out from the golden throne. Just like how it killed Xie Xin, the golden light condensed into the phantom of the immortal slaying platform in the sky. Boom! When the immortal slaying platform transformed into 100,000 feet long radiance and descended, everyone held their breaths and waited for the might of this slash. Puff! The guillotine's radiance and shadow fell on the strange insect's body. The strange insect's body was immediately flattened and couldn't resist at all. Excellent! The Dipankara archaic Buddha chanted, thinking that the strange insect had been killed. Xiao Hua squinted his eyes and reminded, "World Lord, don't forget that some of these strange insects' bodies are extremely hard, while some of them are especially soft and tough. Sure enough, although the strange insect was slashed into 2 halves by the immortal slaying platform's guillotine, just like how Xiao Hua's wishful rod struck the strange insect, its tough body couldn't be broken into 2 halves. Go! The Eastern Ocean Queen glanced at Immortal Emperor Go Chen. The two of them scolded at the same time. One of them spat out a mouthful of dragon-shaped true qi, while the other spat out a mouthful of phoenix-shaped true qi. When these 2 true qis fell on the immortal slaying platform's phantom, the phantom became even more solid. Bam! Finally, where the guillotine landed, the huge strange insect was slashed into 2 halves. Chirp chirp! After the strange insect was slashed apart, it was different from the other strange insects. It rolled around in mid-air as if it was in pain. "I'll lend you a hand, Your Majesty." Seeing this, Xiao Hua's heart skipped a beat. He slapped the top of his head, and a huge hand formed by tricolored thunderbolts descended, grabbing the other half of the strange insect. This thunderbolt hand was slightly different from the one Xiao Hua had used previously. When this hand descended, It instantly sank into the strange insect's body. Boom! Just as grey mist surged out from the other half of the strange insect's body, its body only expanded by 30% before it began to explode. Aoyi understood what was going on. He smiled and said, "Then, I'll lend you a hand, Your Majesty." As he spoke, Aoyi chanted the heavenly dragon art. Balls of light the size of a wicker basket appeared outside the other half of the strange insect's body, revolving around it like fireflies. Fall. As Aoyi chanted a mantra, all the balls of light fell into the other half of the strange insect's body. As expected, the other half of the strange insect's body exploded as well. Namo Metria, good. Namo Metria clasped his palms together and said, "I understand. This strange insect might have the strength of a 9th grade essence force. Our 3 continents don't have any spiritual items that can make it explode. However, if it's cut into 2 or even 4 halves, and then take advantage of the fact that it hasn't recovered, we can still use a spiritual item of an 8th grade essence force to make it explode." "That's right. Namo Metria is right," Xiao Hua said with a smile. "Moreover, this agreement is only for low-grade strange insect." Just as Xiao Hua finished speaking, his expression suddenly changed. He didn't have time to remind anyone. With a whoosh, he disappeared from the throne of creation. Of course, at the same time that he disappeared, the heavenly being and the Thunderbolt spiritual master also disappeared. On the entire Dao sect's lightning mountain, only the throne of creation and the Grand Mist ancestor, who was sitting on the black and white praying mat beside it, were left. The Grand Mist ancestor naturally noticed Xiao Hua's strange movements. He knew that something was wrong, but before he could teleport, a huge black shadow blocked the entire mountain peak. An inexplicable confinement force sealed the space. Boom! 2 pitch-black blade lights slashed down from the sky. Not good. Sensing the aura of death under the blade lights, the Grand Mist ancestor cursed inwardly. In his heart, he hated Xiao Hua to the bone. He already firmly believed that Xiao Hua deliberately didn't remind him. The Grand Mist ancestor remained motionless as he formed a series of seals with his hands. Black and white halos appeared in the space around him, and the moment these halos appeared, the Grand Mist ancestor's 2 scythe-like hind legs slashed down. Swoosh! One of the hind legs landed on the throne of creation. The entire throne emitted lightning, blocking the light shadow. However, the throne was also lifted off the lightning mountain by the hind legs and fell into the jade lake below the mountain peak. As for the other hind leg, it naturally slashed into the black and white halo around the Grand Mist ancestor. However, the strange thing was that the black and white halo was split in half. After the light shadow passed, the black and white halos merged back together. The Grand Mist ancestor was standing inside the halo, unharmed. Of course, the Grand Mist ancestor did not dare to stay for long after dodging the calamity. His figure flashed, and with a flash of black and white light, he forcefully broke through the space shackles and teleported to another place. At this time, a strange insect that was even more ferocious than the previous one slowly appeared in the sky south of the Jade Lake. Damn it. Xiao Hua, Tian Ren, and Lightning Daoist appeared high in the sky above the Jade Lake. The 3 of them surrounded the strange insect, and Xiao Hua couldn't help cursing inwardly when he sensed the mysterious aura emitted by the strange insect. This Xiao boasts that his luck is extremely good, but every time this Xiao comes across a strange insect, how bad is this Xiao's luck? Let's not talk about it previously. This Xiao is now a Daoist Gates Grand Ascension Stage expert, standing at the peak of the 3 continents. Why does this strange insect seem to be more powerful than this Xiao? As for the strange insect, it ignored Xiao Hua and the Grand Mist ancestors' attempt to escape after striking down the Throne of Fortune. Instead, it waved its saw-like tentacles again. The 2 tentacles were sharper than any magic treasure, and they landed on the Lightning Mountain peak. In an instant, the entire mountain peak collapsed. Then, the strange insect opened its mouth and swallowed the collapsed mountain peak. No! Xiao Hua's eyes narrowed as he watched the huge mountain disappear at a speed visible to the naked eye. He said in a low voice, "We can't let this strange insect swallow anymore. This strange insect's strength has already reached the 9th grade of origin energy. If it evolves again, who in the 3 continents can subdue it?" Fellow Taoists. With a plan in mind, Xiao Hua hurriedly said, "Wait until I execute a divine ability to destroy this strange insect, then you two fellow Taoists kill it." Before Tian Ren and the lightning Daoist could reply, boom boom boom. A series of sounds came from the void around the Jade Lake. Several blade-like black shadows flashed through the air and landed on the Buddhist lotus, scroll, and other mountain peaks. There was even a huge tail that stretched out from the Jade Lake. Damn it! The golden-winged Great Peng roared as its body flashed with the brilliance of the moon and stars. Its sharp claws attacked the newly appeared strange insect. Namo Metria Buddha. The world sovereign didn't dare to be careless. He formed a Buddhist mudra with both hands and channeled the power of faith. It turned into countless heavenly flowers and Buddhist light balls to stop another strange insect. Immortal Emperor Go Chen, the East Sea Empress, Ao Yi, and Ao Qian didn't stop. They used their divine abilities to deal with the strange insects that were tens of thousands of feet long. In just a moment, the entire Jade Lake was in chaos. Everything was crushed by the strange insects. Even the previously hidden outline of the Lingyun Side Palace was revealed in the void. Moreover, this outline had been shattered long ago. Clearly, it was destroyed by several strange insects that were tens of thousands of feet long. Not only that, these strange insects were too powerful. Wherever they went, nothing remained. Every time they waved their tentacles and hind legs, they could cut through the void. Wherever they cut through, the immortal soldiers and generals were easily killed. There was no way to avoid them. Although Sun Jian's strength hadn't reached the 9th grade of essence energy, he had the void-seeing eye. Therefore, he had already opened the void-seeing eye between his eyebrows and carefully observed the changes in the surrounding space. Of course, his void-seeing eye wasn't enough to completely detect the traces of the strange insects. However, this technique alone was enough to save his life. Now, seeing that even the sovereigns were panicking, he didn't hesitate to give the order. Retreat. Generals, retreat from the Lingyun Side Palace. This was true monarch Qing Yuan. Even Heavenly King Qing Yu didn't dare to give such an order in the Jade Lake gathering. When the immortal soldiers and generals heard this order, they were all relieved. They hurriedly used their divine abilities to teleport out. When Heavenly King Qing Yu saw this, he hurriedly shouted, "Generals, maintain the formation and retreat. These strange insects came from the void. If you teleport out, you'll encounter even more strange insect." When the immortal soldiers and generals heard this, they were all alarmed. They hurriedly got into a battle formation and slowly flew out. It wasn't that they hadn't experienced blood formations on the battlefield before. However, when faced with such cruel and cold-blooded insects, they couldn't help but panic. Xiao Hua didn't have the time to use the delusion breaker eye to see how many strange insects there were in the void. This was because it was completely meaningless. After he gave the order to the celestial being and the lightning immortal, he immediately waved his hands. Catcher! Layers of thunder mist appeared in the sky. Countless vital chi of heaven and earth turned into crystals and fell into it. Chirp chirp! When Xiao Hua activated his magic power, it immediately attracted the attention of several strange insects. Other than the strange insects that were devouring the lightning mountain, the others also stopped devouring. They raised their huge heads, and a strange color appeared in their black eyes. Xiao Hua didn't dare to be the slightest bit negligent. He used the unstoppable thunder. 5 Qi righteous thunder, 9 heavens divine thunder, 3 corpses yin thunder, Shenming demonic thunder, and triple light amplifying thunder mixed together to form a huge lightning hand. It brought with it a kind of heaven and earth will and suddenly fell down. When the strange insect saw this, it didn't know how to dodge at all. It let out a chirp chirp sound. This chirp sounded as if it was excited. Wherever the sound passed, the space began to collapse. Then, the strange insect's legs kicked, and it pounced towards the lightning hand. Under the lightning hand, the power of thunder and lightning originally sealed the space within 10,000 feet. However, this sealed space seemed to be nothing in the eyes of the strange insect. In a moment, it had already rushed under the lightning hand. However, the strange insect seemed to know the power of the lightning hand. Its 2 tentacles, 1 hind leg, and the tip of its tail all stretched out. They entered the void from 4 directions and attacked the lightning hand. Xiao Hua's lightning hand was now extremely powerful. There were few cultivators in the 3 continents who could withstand it. Even the strange insect was no exception. Rumble. The lightning hand fell. Not only did it shatter the space, but even the strange insect's tentacles, hind leg, and tail were also beaten dry. When the lightning hand fell on the strange insect's body, the strange insect's body first emitted a strange luster as if it was resisting. However, after a few breaths, the entire body immediately became incomparably soft and quickly collapsed. It seemed that the strange insect was unable to resist the lightning hand. Similar to the attack of immortal Emperor Go Chen's golden throne, the lightning hand suddenly crushed the strange insect's body. Chen-ph. Xiao Hua already knew the strange insect's tricks like the back of his hand. Seeing that the strange insect's body had reached its limit, he coldly snorted. His gaze slightly swept over the distant Grand Mist ancestor who was quietly watching him display his techniques in the sky. His hand seals slightly changed. Swoosh. The fury of thunder, which had been hidden inside the lightning hand since a long time ago, was activated. A hidden blade of lightning descended from the lightning hand. Swoosh. The fury of thunder was indeed formidable. As soon as it appeared, it immediately split the shriveled strange insect into 2 halves. Gigi. Just like before, the strange insect rolled and hissed as it fell towards the Jade Lake's waves. It seemed like it wanted to swallow the waves. Kill. Similarly, Tian Ren and Lightning Immortal did not hesitate. Just as Xiao Hua was about to make a move, both of them attacked at the same time. Boom, boom. As expected, the 1,000-feet-long strange insect that was split into 2 halves was easily killed by the 2 Fortune Gate Masters. However, whether it was Xiao Hua, Tian Ren, or Lightning Immortal, all 3 of them felt heavy in their hearts. They did not feel the joy of victory, nor did they feel the guilt of winning with superior numbers. Instead, they raised their heads to look at the other sect's venerables fighting with the strange insect. After a short while, Xiao Hua somewhat understood. Although these strange insects had the strength of 9th grade origin energy, they had not reached the peak of 9th grade origin energy. At most, they were only at the mid-level of 9th grade origin energy. Logically speaking, mid-level 9th grade origin energy shouldn't be a match for the other sect's venerables. They should be able to kill them easily. However, the reason why the 3 continents cultivators, whether it was the human race, demonic beast race, or dragon race, was able to reach the peak of 9th grade origin energy was because they had a breakthrough in the space law. There was no need to talk about the human race. Confucian cultivators ascended with the red clouds, Tao sects ascended with the white sun, and Buddhist sects were guided by the heavens. The demonic beast race and dragon race both broke through the void and relied on the space law. Among Xiao Hua's current abilities, there were many times where he didn't need to use any magic spells. As long as he used the space law, he could produce effects that were more powerful than ordinary magic spells. But today, the various sects' venerables were facing the world-destroying strange insects. These strange insects came from the void and fed on the space law. Previously, when Immortal Emperor Go Chen activated the vast void bell, the strange insects also collapsed along with the space. Moreover, the strange insects' bodies did not suffer any damage. Therefore, when facing these strange insects, the various sects' venerables could only use limited method. They also couldn't reveal too much of their peak 9th grade origin energy. Of course, venerables were venerables after all. Although there were more than 10,000 feet of strange insects, as long as they put in some effort, these strange insects would be wiped out in the time it took to brew a cup of tea. At this moment, the entire Jade Lake was in a mess. It was no longer as beautiful as before. There were still many strange insects flying around wantonly in the space. Although the Lingyun Side Palace did not collapse, its tattered state made Immortal Emperor Go Chen feel ashamed and angry. Damn it! Seeing that everyone was silent, the golden-winged great rock shouted first before anyone could speak. We were discussing how to kill the strange insect here, and this strange insect gave us a head-on blow. If I didn't know that these strange insects came here from the Lingyun Side Palace's pure and noble energy, I would have suspected that these strange insects got the news beforehand and formed a team to launch a surprise attack. At this point, The golden-winged great roc suddenly stopped. His eyes flashed with a golden light as he looked at the various venerables above the jade lake in disbelief. He seemed to have thought of something. Sage Roc. Immortal Emperor Go Chen said, "You're a great sage of the demon clan. Do you think these strange insects have a leader?" The golden-winged great roc seemed to have understood and nodded. "There's no need to talk about this. Not to mention the sky-devouring demon clan, even the featherless demon clan, as long as there are groups of them. We'll have a leader. Of course, I'm from the Flying Feather clan, so I don't know the exact situation of the insect clan. In the Thousand Demons Sacred Realm, there has never been a great sage of the insect clan who could enter the Great Sage Palace. As for the featherless demon clan and the awakening of intelligence, maybe there was one." The golden-winged great roc's tone was uncertain. After all, no matter where in the 3 continents, the insect clan was the weakest. As for the strange insects, most of their intelligence was weak and did not know how to cultivate, so it was difficult for them to featherless demon clan and the awakening of intelligence. Insect clan? Hearing this, Xiao Hua's heart skipped a beat. He immediately thought of the spiritual realm in the space and the 10,000 demons realm outside the 3 continent. Of course, this saint's knowledge is limited to the 1,000 demons sacred realm. These world-destroying strange insects come from outside the realm, and their strength is close to the peak of the 3 continents. Perhaps there will be a leader. The golden-winged great roc added another perhaps. That's impossible. The Pentaceratops shook its head. The demon clan that can featherless demon clan and the awakening of intelligence must have spiritual intelligence, just like how Buddhist disciples need the root of wisdom. Look at these strange insects, they are all fearless of death. How can they have any spiritual intelligence? Just now, even those strange insects that have reached the 9th level of essence power seemed to only have vital chi in their eyes. They didn't dodge much when facing attacks. Hiss. Hearing this, Xiao Hua suddenly sucked in a breath of cold air as if he had a toothache. The scene of him fighting with the 2 strange insects immediately appeared in his mind. At that time, the strange insects were not as clumsy and ignorant as they were now. At that time, the strange insects were so ferocious and agile. Not good. Xiao Hua hurriedly shouted. These strange insects must have a leader. Moreover, the spiritual intelligence of this leader may not be any worse than mine. Chapter 4676. How is that possible? Dongfang Qiong asked curiously, Master Xiao Lei, what do you mean by that? Xiao Hua hurriedly recounted his encounter with the 2 strange insects. In the end, he said, from what I've seen, these strange insects must have evolved recently. They devoured too much true energy and advanced too quickly. Not only are they unable to adapt to their bodies, but their intelligence is also unable to match their strength. That's why they didn't have much strength to retaliate against us. Also, take a look again. There aren't many bugs that are 100 feet or 1,000 feet between the bugs that are tens of feet long and the bugs that are tens of thousands of feet long. It must be because the king of strange bugs that hasn't shown up yet sensed our strength. That's why it gave up on the mid-sized bugs and directly sent the bugs that are tens of thousands of feet long. Daoist Xiao, you mean? The Grand Mist ancestor was also dumbfounded. He said in shock, just now, these strange insects with strength of 9th level origin energy were just probing our strength. Xiao Hua's gaze swept across the various sovereigns and finally landed on the Grand Mist ancestor. He said word by word, that's what I think. I hope I'm wrong. Chirp chirp. Suddenly, the soft cries of a strange insect rang out. Although it was soft and insignificant compared to the cries of insects in the entire space, it was clearly heard by all the sovereigns of the various sects. Even the innate divine restriction outside Xiao Hua's Niwn palace emitted waves of golden light. King of strange insects. Xiao Hua turned pale with fright and hurriedly looked towards the direction of the sound. However, even with Xiao Hua's strength, he couldn't find the direction of the king of strange insects in front of these strange insects. However, there was no need for Xiao Hua to search for it. After the chirping of the insects, a loud boom sounded out from above everyone's heads. Xiao Hua raised his head to look, only to see that the roof of the Lingyun side hall, which was like the dome of heaven, had already been split open. A seemingly small but abnormally sharp tentacle fell from the dome of heaven. Wherever the tentacle fell, space collapsed. All the heaven and earth origin energy, righteous chi, and other things were split in half. Even the light figure in space wasn't spared. Damn it! Immortal Emperor Go-Chen was the first to be enraged. He glanced at the East Sea Empress and raised his hand to slap the phantom of the Golden Throne. The East Sea Empress was also displeased. She also activated the Golden Throne. The phantom of the immortal slaying platform appeared again and flew towards the saw-like tentacles. Catcher! The scythe of the immortal punishment platform slammed into the tentacle. After layers of space shattered, the tentacle also broke inch by inch. However, what shocked Immortal Emperor Go-Chen was that the phantom of the immortal punishment platform also disappeared under the tentacle. What? What is the king of strange insect strength? Xiao Hua was also the immortal punishment platform, Immortal Emperor Go-Chen's chi, the king of 10th level origin energy, the heavens, and the king can't it s it's a 10th level origin energy origin energy origin. Dongziz's he had already prepared he, this is the it. Dongfang Qiong Hao had long been on guard. He saw the shadow falling from the sky, but it did not seem to have any sealing power. It was sharp and fast. How could he not know that it was one of the monster insect king's hind legs? Dongfang Qiong Hao didn't hesitate at all. He waved his hand and the Wuji apricot yellow flag fluttered in the air. As the innate Wuji flags fluttered in the air, golden lotuses gushed out and protected the space around him. Poof poof poof. The moment the lotuses appeared, the void began to explode. The golden lotuses in the sky were also shattered. How is this possible? Xiao Hua's heart was in his throat as he thought to himself, if the innate 5-element flags can't stop the king of strange insects, then what else can? Luckily, the Monster King only managed to destroy one of the 10 waves of golden lotuses. Then, its sharp, pitch-black hind legs were revealed in the sky. The sharp leg that could easily split a mountain flashed a few times and disappeared into the void. Thank goodness. Xiao Hua didn't know if he was rejoicing for himself, Dongfang Qiong Hao, or the beings of the 3 continents. He couldn't help but pat his chest. When Xiao Hua raised his hand, extreme fear rose from the bottom of his heart. He couldn't help but lower his head to look at the jade pool. Sigh. When Xiao Hua saw the scene inside the jade lake, he turned pale with fright. The clear jade pool was covered by a layer of darkness. This layer of darkness wasn't a single piece. Instead, it was made up of hundreds or even thousands of small pieces of darkness. It was just like how the land of Lingyun Side Palace was surrounded by crisscrossing paths. In these small pitch-black pieces, there was a kind of extreme coldness and ruthlessness, and in this pitch-black darkness, Xiao Hua saw thousands of his own reflections. The king of strange insects' eyes. Xiao Hua immediately understood. Without hesitation, he moved his hands, and a thunderous hand appeared out of thin air and grabbed at the jade pool. The moment the thunderous hand appeared, the entire jade pool was imprisoned. Lightning mixed with the power of heaven and earth rushed toward the king of strange insect. However, to Xiao Hua's surprise, before the thunderous hand landed, the king of strange insect's eyes suddenly disappeared. The jade pool was still the jade pool, and the jade pool was still the jade pool. Damn it! Xiao Hua cursed in his heart. He slapped his forehead and opened his delusion breaker Dharma eye to look around. At this moment, the void was filled with black dots of various sizes. These black dots ranged from the size of ink dots to the size of hundreds of feet. They were all flying around like locusts. Although Xiao Hua could see clearly, it was impossible to find the black dots that were tens of thousands of feet large among these black dots. Xiao Hua was about to close his delusion breaker Dharma eye. Whoosh! Suddenly, a tail stinger that looked like a meteor streaked across the darkness and stabbed at a silver-white dragon body. Xiao Hua naturally knew that the silver-white dragon body belonged to Ao Qian, the Lord of the Eastern Sea. He hurriedly transmitted a message to warn him, but at this moment, a dragon throne, 2 golden thrones, and 2 pillars of light appeared in his delusion breaker Dharma eye. 2 dragon bodies flashed and rushed into the black dots. Obviously, Immortal Emperor Gauchen and the others had also discovered the King of Strange Insects' tracks. When Xiao Hua saw that the supreme beings of the various sects had already begun to besiege him, he stopped transmitting his voice. However, just as he was about to close his Dharma eye, a blurry shadow suddenly flashed in another direction. Another King of Strange Insects. Xiao Hua shuddered and hurriedly looked in that direction. Unfortunately, the shadow was nowhere to be seen. Could it be that these two King of Strange Insects, one in the light and the other in the dark, are also plotting against us? The more Xiao Hua thought about it, the more likely it seemed. He didn't dare to transmit his message to Immortal Emperor Gauchen and the others, fearing that the two King of Strange Insects would have some special spatial divine ability that could allow them to hear him. He only warned Celestial Being and the Lightning Immortal in his mind before he slightly narrowed his Delusion Breaker Dharma eye and pretended to attack the King of Strange Insects from all sides as he lunged out of the Jade Lake. At this moment, Ao Qian had already summoned the Dragon Throne, which turned into a golden dragon and blocked the tip of the King of Strange Insects' tail. Immortal Emperor Gauchen and the others used their divine abilities to attack the King of Strange Insects' shell. Swoosh! While Xiao Hua condensed a thunderous hand to grab the King of Strange Insects in the distant void, a black shadow as big as a mountain rushed out from the void in another direction of Ao Qian. It was the other King of Strange Insects that was hiding in the dark using its hind leg to attack Ao Qian's dragon body. The moment the hind leg appeared, Ao Qian's soul left his body. He roared and hurriedly used his dragon throne to block the attack. Unfortunately, the dragon avatar was already pierced by the King of Strange Insects' tail. How could he move the dragon avatar away? Helpless, Ao Qian swung his dragon tail in an attempt to use the toughness of his dragon body to break the King of Strange Insects' leg from the side. Just as Ao Qian's plan started, the King of Strange Insects' leg immediately changed direction and slashed towards Ao Qian's dragon tail. Don't panic, fellow Immortal Ao, I'll help you. Celestial Being and the Lightning Immortal suddenly turned around. One wielded a lightning spear while the other spat out a tricolored beam to attack the other King of Strange Insects' leg. Looking at Xiao Hua again, he didn't even teleport. Instead, lightning surged around his body and formed layers of lightning bolts. He actually executed the lightning escape technique and pounced at the other monster king in the void with lightning speed. Xiao Hua's actions were very strange and extremely fast. Not to mention the monarch, even Immortal Emperor Gauchen's group didn't notice anything. In the blink of an eye, before Celestial Being could stop the King of Strange Insects' leg, Xiao Hua had already reached high up in the sky, right at the base of the King of Strange Insects' leg. Then, without waiting for the King of Strange Insects to resist, Xiao Hua opened his mouth and spat out a strand of six-colored flame that quickly entered the King of Strange Insects' body. When Xiao Hua saw the six-colored spirit fire entering the Strange Insect King's body, he did not stop and was immediately sent flying again. Boom, boom, boom. Just as Xiao Hua left, the space around him began to boil. Flames soared into the sky, and another monster bug king that was tens of thousands of feet long appeared in the void with six-colored flames surging around its body. Following the flames, the monster bug king's body rapidly expanded and easily broke through the barrier of 100,000 feet. The King of Strange Insects' leg that was meant to kill Ao Qian suddenly caught fire and became gigantic. As the monster insect king's body expanded, a grey mist rose from the fire, as if it was trying to put out the fire. However, the grey mist didn't extinguish the flames. Instead, it showed signs of being ignited. At the same time, the King of Strange Insects' body showed no signs of stopping expanding. All right. Seeing that the strange bug king's reaction was similar to that of the first void bug, Xiao Hua was greatly reassured. He began to plan how he could take the opportunity to eliminate the other strange bug king. However, in just a few moments, the strange bug king's body, which had been expanding all this time, suddenly emitted a strange fluctuation, and it actually stopped. Then, it strangely shrank again until it was less than 10,000 meters. Xiao Hua's heart couldn't help but tighten again. Boom! The King of Strange Insects' body only shrank for a few breaths before it expanded uncontrollably again. Phew! Xiao Hua heaved a sigh of relief again. Chirp chirp! Seeing that the King of Strange Insects' body was becoming transparent and was about to explode, The king of strange insects hissed a few times. The pitch-black patches on its body began to condense and turn into fine lines. From the fine lines, wisps of green mist mixed with golden threads slowly surged out. As soon as the mist and the golden threads came out, the king of strange insects' body immediately dimmed. The king of strange insects' body began to shrink again, but it shrank at a much slower speed than before. At this moment, the king of strange insects opened its mouth to devour the chi of heaven and earth in the space, causing the space to gradually collapse. As the space collapsed, a destructive aura spread out from the king of strange worms' body in all directions like threads and surging tides. Deformed black fine lines appeared in the aura like hairs, and the indescribable laws of heaven and earth abruptly emerged from the fine lines of the head. Oh, no. Xiao Hua was shocked to see this. How could he not know that the king of strange insects had begun to devour his king of strange insects' six-colored spiritual fire and was about to evolve? He could already fend off many of the king of strange insects' attacks. If it evolved, it would truly become a king of strange insects with 10th grade origin energy. Xiao Hua did not know what would happen after the king of strange insects evolved. He did not know if the laws of the 3 continents would restrict its strength, but he definitely did not want to see the king of strange insects evolve. He did not dare to take the risk. Kill. Xiao Hua roared furiously and waved his hands. He no longer held back and unleashed the wrath of thunder. The lightning that looked like the immortal slaying platform fell madly on the king of strange insect. However, when the lightning came into contact with the king of strange insect's body, a strange law of space flashed out from the golden threads of the green mist. The lightning immediately fell into the void when it came into contact with the formation. It could not kill the king of strange insects at all. What? What should I do? What should I do? Xiao Hua was shocked. He was like a headless fly, scratching his ears and cheeks in confusion. Ao Sheng, Ao Sheng. Xiao Hua could not help but think of Ao Sheng. This was because Xiao Hua had only encountered strange insects twice and killed them twice. The first time was with the spiritual fire, and the second time was with Ao Sheng's long bay. Thinking of this, Xiao Hua did not care that Ao Sheng was cultivating in seclusion. He shouted, "Fellow celestial being, fellow thunder daoist, the two of you use your divine abilities and do your best to disturb the king of strange insects' advancement and attract its attention." Yes. Celestial being and lightning daoist received the order and used their divine abilities. Lightning and light pillars descended and entangled with the king of strange insects. Aoyi. Xiao Hua was anxious. He did not care about etiquette and roared at Aoyi. Then, Xiao Hua's mind entered the space again and pulled Ao Sheng out of it. Ao Sheng's dragon body floated in mid-air, looking like it was in deep sleep. Outside the golden dragon body, there was a huge dragon god shadow that was also in deep sleep, slowly taking shape. On the phantom, the dragon patterns were like true dragons. As they swam, countless dragons were born and destroyed, and countless dragon domain phenomena were born. This. When Aoyi heard Xiao Hua's shout and saw another king of strange insects in such a state, he knew that the situation was urgent. He urged his dragon body and rushed over. However, when he saw Ao Sheng's appearance, he could not help but be dumbfounded. The reverence that came from the bottom of his heart made him involuntarily shout, "Dragon Master Xiao, don't disturb us, bullshit." Xiao Hua would not listen to Aoyi. He raised his hand and a huge slap landed on Ao Sheng's dragon head. Boom! Ao Sheng trembled from the slap. The dragon god phantom immediately dissipated and disappeared into his dragon body. Aoyi sighed continuously. Boom, boom, boom. Seeing that Ao Sheng did not wake up, Xiao Hua slapped Ao Sheng's face a few more times. Who dares to disturb Laozi? Ao Sheng finally woke up. Just as he was about to roar, Xiao Hua immediately roared, "Don't talk nonsense, quickly tell Laozi, what exactly was inside that long bay when you were in the folded jade legacy realm?" What long bay? When Ao Sheng heard Xiao Hua's anger, he trembled and did not dare to say anything. However, he still did not understand what Xiao Hua was saying. Boom! Xiao Hua once again slapped Ao Sheng's face and shouted, "Wake up for your father. Look at what this is." What? Ah! Ao Sheng sleepily looked at the huge strange insect. At first, he did not understand, but after a moment, he shouted again. His dragon body shook violently, and the sleepiness from before had long disappeared. It could be seen that the strange insect in the stacked jade legacy realm had left a huge shadow in his heart. What exactly is inside the long bay that you killed the strange insect? Tell me. Xiao Hua looked at the six-colored spiritual fire on the king of strange insects' body that was about to be extinguished and shouted, "Don't tell me that you didn't think about it carefully later." Holy Dragon Seal, Holy Dragon Seal. Ao Sheng also shouted in fear, "I remember telling Master Long about it. Other than the Holy Dragon Seal, what else is there?" Xiao Hua shouted, "Tell me one by one." Ao Yi, who was at the side, already knew what Xiao Hua was going to do. He also nervously took out his long bay and waited for Ao Sheng to speak. Nan Hongshan, Qian Yumu. Ao Sheng hesitated slightly and began to speak one by one. Second Elder. Xiao Hua shouted, "The king of strange insects is devouring everything that can help it advance. There's no need for Master Long to say more. I understand." Ao Yi had already taken out Nan Hongshan, Qian Yumu, and the others. When he heard Xiao Hua's explanation, he hurriedly waved his hand and threw these things into the space and true qi that the king of strange insects was devouring. "All right." Xiao Hua nodded and hurriedly urged Ao Sheng to recall. At the same time, he looked at Immortal Emperor Go Chen and the others. The battle over there was also difficult to determine. The king of strange insects was different from the previous strange insects. It was very agile in space. Even if the paragons of various sects worked together, they could not seal the space. The so-called attacks rarely landed on the king of strange insects' body. There were even many great divine abilities that landed. The spatial laws on the king of strange insects' body distorted, and these divine abilities were also removed. If not for the fact that the king of strange insects was also eager to find an opportunity to advance, it would have escaped from the siege of the paragons of various sects long ago. Damn it! How did things get to this point? Xiao Hua was a little regretful that he had used the six-colored spirit fire. However, he also knew in his heart that other than the six-colored spirit fire that could explode the strange insects, he did not have any other effective method. "Now, I can only place my hopes on Ao Sheng," Xiao Hua said helplessly. Unfortunately, Xiao Hua was going to be disappointed in the end. In half a cup of tea's time, Ao Sheng had already told him everything that he remembered. Ao Yi was also very hardworking. He also brought everything in the long bay, but none of these things made the king of strange insects explode. "Xiao. Master Xiao." Seeing that Xiao Hua was about to slap him again, Ao Sheng said aggrievedly, "That's all in my long bay. Do I have a second sacred dragon seal?" "I have a divine dragon seal that's similar to the sacred dragon seal." Ao Yi gritted his teeth and took out a dragon-shaped item that was a few feet long from the long bay. It looked like a seal and said in a low voice, "If the sacred dragon seal is useful, this item should be useful too." "Why? Why didn't you take it out earlier?" Xiao Hua was exasperated. Ao Yi shook his head and said, "This item is the same as the sacred dragon seal. It's an ancient item from Dragon Island. It itself." "Ah, forget it." At that moment, Ao Yi did not explain. Then, he threw the divine dragon seal into the mouth of the king of strange insects. Xiao Hua stared at the divine dragon seal being devoured by the king of strange insects and then at its body. After more than 10 breaths, other than the body of the king of strange insects trembling, 80% of the spirit fire had disappeared. The divine dragon seal was useless. "Ah, I knew it." Ao Yi sighed, not knowing if he was feeling heartache or regretful. "Damn it." Xiao Hua punched Ao Sheng's dragon body again and said anxiously, "It's not the sacred dragon seal. Hurry up and think, what else?" "Dragon Master Xiao." Ao Sheng was in pain from the beating and shouted, "There's really nothing else. Back then, you didn't come out of the folded jade legacy realm for 3 days. I thought about it for a long time. Other than the pills you gave me, there was really nothing else." "Pills?" Xiao Hua was stunned and asked curiously, "What pills did I give you?" "The blood-replenishing pill you gave me when we were in the deeper UN?" Ao Sheng asked curiously, "Don't you remember?" Xiao Hua frowned and thought about it. Indeed, he had some impression of it. However, the blood-replenishing pill was refined by the lightning immortal for the disciples of the Fortune Gate. It was very ordinary, so Xiao Hua did not remember it. But suddenly, Xiao Hua's heart skipped a beat. He waved his hand and took out some spirit herbs from the space and threw them into the space where the king of strange insects was devouring. It was not out of Xiao Hua's expectations. The spirit herbs did not cause any abnormalities. After all, he had used spirit herbs to lure the strange insects in the folded jade legacy realm. Oh, right, I took some that day and asked you for more. You gave me a jade bottle, but there were not many in it. I took one of them, but the effect was not great. The other few were left in the jade bottle and put in the long bay. Ao Sheng muttered a few words as if he was dreaming. Boom. Although Ao Sheng's words were vague, it was like a bolt from the blue in Xiao Hua's ears. He was really stunned in midair. After a few breaths, he waved his trembling hand and took out a jade bottle from the space. Xiao Hua took a deep breath and poured out the pill from the jade bottle. He then put it near his nose and sniffed it. He raised his hand and threw the pill into the space where the king of strange insects was devouring. The king of strange insects was more than 10,000 zhong long, and the pill was only the size of a thumb. However, when the pill entered the king of strange insects' mouth, the king of strange insects' body expanded from its head. It expanded uncontrollably and did not shrink at all. The dark green color and the flickering golden threads of the space law had no effect. Boom! The king of strange insects, which was almost invincible in the 3 continents, and whose strength was close to the 10th grade, inexplicably exploded just like that. The strange aura that could destroy the world, the deformed black threads, and all the other apocalyptic phenomena disappeared like a splash of water. What? What kind of pill is this? Aoyi was dumbfounded. He looked at Xiao Hua in disbelief and couldn't help but exclaim. Xiao Hua's tears were about to fall. These were tears of excitement and gratitude. At this moment, his heart was only filled with the image of the cultivator who often lay lazily on the boat and basked in the sun, Xiao Yuhong, the person who gave Xiao Hua his knowledge, the person who picked Xiao Hua up from the demon-resisting valley, the person who had always acknowledged Xiao Hua as half his disciple. Master. Xiao Hua's heart was intoxicated. He knew best in his heart that what he had just thrown into the king of strange insects' mouth was the parasol pill that he had refined when Xiao Yuhong was watching over him. It was a healing pill refined from the parasol grass and blood-devouring grass of the Dawn Rain continent. It was an ordinary pill that any cultivator, even if they were at the first level of qi refinement, could take. The reason why Xiao Hua had kept this most basic pill was to commemorate the person who gave him his name, the person who had died at the hands of a nascent soul cultivator, but it was this ancient memory that today saved Xiao Hua's life. And in the future, it would also save the lives of millions of creatures. This was because Xiao Hua's most ordinary parasol pill was refined using the worldly origin energy of the Dawn Rain continent. When Xiao Hua refined this parasol pill, the worldly origin energy of the Dawn Rain continent had already begun to mutate. This mutated worldly origin energy was admittedly the misfortune of the Dawn Rain continent's Dao cultivators, but at the same time, it was also the blessing of the 3 continent. The heavenly Dao was boundless, but the heavenly Dao was impartial. Before the 3 continents sensed the apocalypse, the heavenly Dao had already left behind a method to eliminate this world-destroying strange insects on the Dawn Rain continent. What Xiao Hua needed to do now was to find a way to use the method left behind by the heavenly Dao on the Dawn Rain continent. However, how could he bring the mutated worldly origin energy of the Dawn Rain continent to the 3 continents? At this moment, Xiao Hua didn't have the time to think about this problem. This was because when the strange insect king exploded, the other strange insect king that was fighting with immortal Emperor Go Chen immediately became alert. Swoosh! A wave of ferocious tide-like fluctuations emerged from the strange insect king's body and spread towards the depths of the void. Don't let it escape. Xiao Hua shouted. His body turned into lightning as he rushed over with the other parasol pill. Immortal Emperor Go Chen and the other supremes lost a lot of face. They simply didn't expect that there would be such a powerful strange insect in this world. It was able to ignore the worldly laws of the three continents. Their divine abilities couldn't even touch its hair. Now that they saw the fluctuations coming from the strange insect king's body, how could they not know that it wanted to escape? It was fine if several Supremes couldn't kill one strange insect king, but if they let it escape, the Supremes didn't dare to think too much. After hearing Xiao Hua's shout, they all activated their divine abilities. They didn't want to succeed, but they wanted to not make any mistakes. They wanted to trap the strange insect king in this space. The fortune of the Confucian cultivators was like a belt, the faith of the Buddhist sect was like a river, the stars and moon of the demon race were like swords, and the dragon language of the dragon race was like a loop. The space around the strange insect king was sealed layer by layer. Strange runes were also born from the confinement. A power that exceeded the worldly laws even attracted the power of laws. The fluctuations came down like a blanket. However, before Xiao Hua could get close, he saw a pitch-black light flash before his eyes. The strange insect king's body actually disappeared in an instant. Xiao Hua found it inconceivable that he had disappeared so abruptly. Without hesitation, he activated his delusion breaker Dharma Eye. Unfortunately, there was no trace of the strange insect king within the range of his illusion breaker Dharma Eye. Even the flea-like black dot in the void began to mysteriously disappear at this time. Swoosh. Swoosh. Kaka. Almost at the same time when Xiao Hua opened his illusion breaker Dharma Eye, Immortal Emperor Gochen's clear heavenly mirror, Dipankara archaic Buddha's Buddhism divine abilities, and Aoyi's dragon race secret arts were all activated at the same time. Through his illusion breaker Dharma Eye, Xiao Hua could see a few powerful halos flashing by and enveloping his surrounding. Sigh. Xiao Hua saw that he couldn't do anything. He closed his illusion breaker Dharma Eye and stopped moving. He sighed and said, "Things in this world are really strange. Although I've cultivated to the peak of the three continents and have the chance to look down on all the mountains, I still have to face them. But, I can't do anything to stop this strange insect king from leaving, not to mention me, even the Supremes of the various sects can't do anything to it. This Xiao can only say that. There is always a sky beyond the sky, a mountain beyond a mountain, and a person beyond a person." Sure enough, after a while, Immortal Emperor Gochen's face turned pale. He kept the clear heavenly mirror and looked at the various Supremes. Just as he was about to speak, he glanced at the strange insect king in the nearest space and sneered, "Empress, quickly keep the jade pool." "Yes, Your Majesty." The East Sea Queen's face also turned pale. She thought that Immortal Emperor Gochen was embarrassed by the situation, so she hurriedly kept the jade pool. But before she could do so, Immortal Emperor Gochen raised his hand and slapped the golden throne. Boom! Several golden lights gushed out of the Lingyun side palace like fountains. Rumble, rumble. As the golden light fell, the entire dilapidated soaring cloud-side palace immediately collapsed inch by inch and exploded. The countless strange insects in the soaring cloud-side palace crazily devoured the vital energy in the explosion and exploded one by one. The destruction of the palace and the destruction of the insects triggered the collapse of the palace. The entire space began to shake violently. "Your Majesty." The East Sea Queen didn't expect Immortal Emperor Gochen to be so decisive. She exclaimed, "This Lingyun side palace is HMPH. Immortal Emperor Gochen snorted coldly and said, "There are billions of strange insects in this Lingyun side palace. If we let them go back, who knows how many cultivators and citizens they will devour. It's better to destroy them all here. Even if we have to sacrifice the entire Lingyun side palace, it's still worth it." "Good." Xiao Hua clapped his hands and said with a smile, "This Xiao has never seen Your Majesty so pleasing to the eye." Immortal Emperor Gochen glanced at Xiao Hua and said coldly, "That's because you have never used your heart to look at me." Xiao Hua asked back, "The question is, Your Majesty, where are the immortal soldiers and immortal generals inside the Lingyun side palace?" "They will naturally escape." Immortal Emperor Gochen replied indifferently, "Even Princess Qing and the others will also escape." As he said this, Immortal Emperor Gochen intentionally or unintentionally glanced at the Thunderbolt Immortal. After a little less than an hour, the entire Lingyun side palace was completely destroyed. Just as immortal Emperor Go Chen thought, 90% of the strange insects were killed along with the Lingyun side palace. The remaining 10% either escaped or were chased down by the immortal soldiers and immortal generals. There was no need for the supremes of the various sects to take action. Xiao Hua and the other supremes stood in the sky, which was the center of the space. After the Lingyun side palace was destroyed, the collapsed space fell around them and slowly disappeared. It was as if they were not part of this space at all. The coldness on their faces was also completely different from the heat of the space. Seeing that the collapse was coming to an end, Immortal Emperor Go Chen looked at the thumb-sized parasol pill in Xiao Hua's hand. His eyes flashed with a strange expression as he asked, "Master Xiao Lei, can you tell me what this miraculous pill in your hand is?" "Parasol pill." Xiao Hua did not hide anything and honestly answered. "Parasol pill?" Not to mention Immortal Emperor Go Chen, even Grand Mist Ancestor and Ao Yi, who had a pair of dragon ears, were baffled. It was obvious that they had never heard of this name before. The parasol pill is refined using parasol grass and blood-devouring grass. It is the most basic healing pill of my Dao Gate, Xiao Hua explained. Grand Mist Ancestor's eyes unconsciously lit up when he heard this. He hurriedly waved his hand and took out a pill. He said excitedly, "Daoist Xiao, so. My Dao Gate's healing pill is the innate nemesis of the strange insects. You can try." Xiao Hua replied indifferently. "Woo." Without waiting for Xiao Hua to finish speaking, Grand Mist Ancestor raised his hand. A large illusory hand appeared and grabbed one of the strange insects that were left behind in the distance. Then, he confidently flicked his hand and the pill landed right in front of the strange insect. When the strange insect smelled the pill, it immediately moved its legs and pounced over. It opened its mouth and swallowed the pill into its stomach. Unfortunately, when the pill entered the strange insect's body, the strange insect's body only expanded slightly. There was no abnormality. "Daoist Xiao, could it be that you are hiding something?" Grand Mist Ancestor was unhappy. Xiao Hua waved his hand and took out 2 spiritual herbs. He nodded and said, "One of them is parasol grass and the other is blood-devouring grass." After speaking, Xiao Hua sent one spiritual herb after another into the strange insect's mouth. After the strange insect swallowed it, its body did not even move. "Master Xiao, do you mean?" Ao Yi probed. "Is there a secret to your refining technique?" "No." Xiao Hua raised his hand and looked at the parasol pill in his hand. A trace of tenderness appeared on his face as he replied, "It's this pill that is different. Take it and try." Grand Mist Ancestor said unhappily, "I don't believe it." Xiao Hua coldly looked at Grand Mist Ancestor and said, "Whether you believe it or not, what does it have to do with me?" After speaking, Xiao Hua did not even look at Grand Mist Ancestor's embarrassed and angry expression. He withdrew his hand and sent the precious parasol pill into the space. "Master Xiao, why don't you try again?" The golden-winged Great Peng also advised, "If you succeed, won't we be more certain? Every time I try, there will be one less pill." Xiao Hua did not want to brush off the golden-winged Great Peng's face and said with a smile, "This kind of pill. I only have a few." "Ah, why so few?" When the supremes of the various sects saw that Xiao Hua had the spirit pill that could kill the king of monster insects, and also heard that it was the lowest grade healing spirit pill of Taoism, they all had hope in their hearts, thinking that Xiao Hua must have a lot of them. However, when they heard Xiao Hua's words, they couldn't help but be surprised. Even the master of the Eastern Sea, Ao Qian, asked, "Master Xiao Hua, do you have a lot of them? If you don't have the parasol grass and blood-devouring grass, we will do our best to find them." Unfortunately, Xiao Hua raised his head and looked at the chaotic void in the sky. He shook his head and said, "The parasol grass and blood-devouring grass here can't be used." Dragon Master Xiao, the 5-horned profound armor dragon, was a little displeased. What's so special about this pill? Why was it able to kill the monstrous insect king? I'm sure you already know the answer. At this point, you and I are in the same boat, so why can't you just tell me? I naturally have to tell you. Xiao Hua's tone was faint as he replied, "But I don't know where to start." "Master Xiao Hua, speak slowly." The East Ocean Empress said with a smile, We are all ears. If you feel thirsty, I have a peach of immortality here to moisten your mouth. He, then I will have to trouble you, Empress. Xiao Hua rolled his eyes and said with a smile. The East Ocean Empress did as she said. She nodded and handed a peach of immortality to Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua took it and looked at it carefully. He saw that this peach of immortality was the size of a washbasin. It was furry and fluffy, and under the fluffy skin was the peach skin. It was bright red and made people drool just by looking at it. Not to mention, a faint sweet fragrance rushed into Xiao Hua's mouth and nose. His craving had long been aroused. Xiao Hua looked left and right and said with a smile, I have never eaten a peach of immortality before. So, I am sorry, everyone has seen a joke. As he spoke, Xiao Hua opened his mouth and was about to take a bite of the peach of immortality. He only felt the fragrant flesh enter his mouth, and it really melted in his mouth. The wash-basin-sized peach of immortality was swallowed by Xiao Hua in a few mouthfuls. It was not an exaggeration to say that he was wolfing it down. After he finished eating, the East Ocean Empress was about to ask for the peach pit. Xiao Hua waved his hand and took the pit. He said with a smile, "Oh right, Princess Xixia should also listen to what I want to say. Empress, please wait a moment." The East Ocean Empress opened her mouth and looked at Immortal Emperor Go Chen. Immortal Emperor Go Chen thought for a moment and slightly nodded at the East Ocean Empress, tacitly admitting that Xiao Hua was greedy for the peach pit. However, the East Ocean Empress was unwilling and said in a low voice, "Master Xiao Hua, that peach. If it wasn't for the water of the Jade Lake, it would not have sprouted and bear fruit." "Oh, yes." Xiao Hua took out the Kunlun mirror and answered without saying anything. When Princess Xixia came out, Xiao Hua did not wait for her to speak and said, "Everyone, did I say that I was not in a good mood before? If you want to kill strange insects, there is a basic method to kill them, and that is to use heterogeneous true energy, and within this Xiao's parasol dragon pill. There is also a different type of true energy. This heterogeneous true energy does not belong to the plane of the three continents. It belongs to another plane called the Dawn Rain continent. Let's see the situation of the battle prowess ranking first. Also, I thank everyone for supporting God cultivation. If everyone can enjoy this chapter to their heart's content, it will be the greatest gratification for the third place. At the same time, I will use this opportunity to call for more readers to subscribe to the original version of this book. The third place does not ask for everyone to subscribe to all the previous chapters. I only hope that everyone can start from the most recent chapters. The story of the immortal world and the desolate era is in everyone's hands. The third place tearfully asks for subscriptions. If the subscriptions reach 1,000, the immortal world will be opened. If the monthly votes reach 100, the next chapter will be opened. If the monthly votes reach 1,000, the next chapter will be opened. How Xiao Hua went against the light to become a saint will depend on everyone. The third place thanks. Chapter 4677. You're not a cultivator from our three continent. At this moment, the Supremes finally woke up from their daze and exclaimed in shock. No. Immortal Emperor Go Chen shook his head again and said, "This emperor also thought that you were an outer realm cultivator, but there are no spatial passages to the outer realm near our three continents. Moreover, with your cultivation back then, it was impossible for you to break through the barrier with your physical body like them. I came here through the three Xiantian Great Arrays in the West Sea." Xiao Hua explained, "These three formations seem to be the Buddhist sect's Great Meru formation, the Tao sect's Five Elements Annihilation formation, and the demon race's Clear Time Demon formation." After Xiao Hua explained how he came here through the formations, the Supremes looked at each other in dismay. A moment later, Dongfang Qianghao asked, "Master Xiao Lei, we already know how you came here. Moreover, we also know that the Dawn Rain continent's origin energy can kill the strange insects. Now, can you tell us the situation of the Dawn Rain continent? For example, what's the situation with the Confucian cultivators, Buddhist sect, demon race, dragon race, and Tao sect?" Hearing Dongfang Qianghao's words, Xiao Hua's heart trembled. He smiled and said, "When I left the Dawn Rain continent, My cultivation was shallow and I had been cultivating with my master. My sect was a small sect with only 3.5 disciples. Not only did I not go to many places, but I also didn't know much about the Dawn Rain continent. Seeing that Xiao Hua didn't want to say, the others couldn't force him. The golden-winged Peng asked, since we already know how to kill the strange insects, then what should we do? Xiao Hua already had a plan and replied, this is my idea. I'll discuss it with everyone. Please speak, Master Xiao. At this time, no one dared to disturb Xiao Hua and they all quietly listened to his explanation. First of all, the strange insects can pass through space, so our plan to guard the borders of the 3 continents and the 4 seas to stop the strange insects from entering the realm has failed. We can only set up defenses in the 3 continents and the 4 seas. Xiao Hua said, according to the previous discussion, the Dragon Race and Dragon Island are in charge of the Eastern Ocean, Northern Ocean, and Southern Ocean. Dao sect is in charge of the Western Ocean, Buddhist sect is in charge of the Immortal Realm, Confucian cultivators are in charge of the Hidden Immortal Continent, and the Demon Race are in charge of the 1,000 Demon Sacred Realm. Of course, as for how to kill the strange insects, I'm sure you've all seen how powerful the strange insects are today. So, I'm sure all of you have an idea. Secondly, I would like to invite all the Supremes to return to the Immortal Palace, Great Sage Hall, Thunder Temple, Dragon Island, and Dragon Palace to look for ancient books and records to see if there are any traces of the Dawn Rain continent, or if there are any spatial meridians that lead to other realms, such as the Dawn Rain continent, the 10,000 Demon Realm, the Spirit Realm, and so on. If there are any, we can go to the Dawn Rain continent, or go to the Dawn Rain continent through other realms to obtain enough spiritual herbs and spiritual items to kill all the strange insects. Hearing this, the Grand Mist Ancestor said, Fellow Daoist Xiao, I have no objections to your first arrangement. But I feel that the second suggestion is unrealistic. Not to mention the big problem of finding the Dawn Rain continent. Even if we find the space vein to the Dawn Rain continent, there are countless strange insects in the 3 continents. How many spiritual herbs do we need to bring? This Xiao has the Kunlun mirror, His Majesty has the clear sky mirror, you venerables must have other treasures. Xiao Hua smiled and said, you may not know how many spiritual herbs these treasures can hold. Moreover, don't forget that a small blade of grass can kill a strange insect. We only need to kill the strange insects that are 100 zhong tall. What's the point of killing the small insects? The problem is, Grand Mist Ancestor wanted to get to the bottom of it. There are more strange insects hidden in the void, we don't know. This is the root of the strange insects. Hee. Xiao Hua smiled and waved his hand. This Xiao will not tell you in detail. Wait until you finish reading the story of the Confucian cultivators. The foolish old man moves the mountain, then this Xiao will tell you. Damn it. Xiao Hua's words choked the Grand Mist Ancestor. How could the Grand Mist Ancestor not know the story of the foolish old man moving the mountain? He couldn't help but curse in his heart. Then, he suppressed his disgust and said with a smile, Daoist Master Xiao, please don't blame me. I just wanted to ask for more details. Otherwise, if others knew about this, they might think too much. Overthink? What's there to overthink? Xiao Hua frowned. Naturally, they feel that Xiao Lang is using a chicken feather as an arrow. They want to borrow this matter and borrow the strength of the various sect sovereigns to find the space vein to return to the Dawn Rain continent. Princess Zi Xia continued. Grand Mist Ancestor, is this what you mean? Hihi, I didn't say that. The Grand Mist Ancestor chuckled, as the saying goes, 3 men make a tiger. Since your highness can think of it, it's not impossible for others to think of it. Who cares? Xiao Hua waved his hand. You're already at death's door, yet you still have so many dirty thoughts. You deserve to die. Dragon Master Xiao's arrangement is pretty good. Ao Yi glanced at Ao Sheng, who was already in a deep sleep, and smiled. After I return to Dragon Island, I'll definitely order the Dragon Race to find the space vein nearby. However, will Dragon Master still allow Ao Sheng to return to the Kunlun Immortal Realm? Of course. Xiao Hua smiled. He shook the Kunlun mirror and kept Ao Sheng. Then, he said to Ao Yi, I'll have to trouble Dragon Island. We also know Immortal Emperor Go Chen, the Dipankara archaic Buddha, and the golden-winged great roc nodded. Now, we'll make two arrangements. On one hand, we'll use our current strength to exterminate the strange insects. On the other hand, we'll search for the space vein that connects to the Dawn Rain continent. I feel that we should focus on searching for the space vein. Because this method doesn't require us to fight against the strange insects. Xiao Hua was afraid that the various sect sovereigns would slack off, so he emphasized, there's no need to risk the lives of our disciples. Moreover, I feel that the two strange insect kings that appeared today might not be real kings. There are still many with the same strength as them. Yes, Thunder Master Xiao is right. Immortal Emperor Go Chen thought for a while and said, we can't underestimate them. Moreover, other than the two things that Thunder Master Xiao mentioned, I also feel that we Confucian cultivators need to set up the 9 provinces Great Formation. Ayo. Hearing this, Xiao Hua slapped his forehead and said, I understand now. So this is the reason why the Scholar Palace's master didn't participate in the Jade Lake gathering. Your Majesty is really far-sighted. I'm impressed. Hee. Immortal Emperor Go Chen smiled and said, since you've made 2 preparations, I have to make 2 preparations too. If he can't make a move, then only my Immortal Palace can make a move. 9 ninth grade elemental force Wenxing cultivators, our Immortal Palace still has some. Hee, but since it's the 9 provinces Great Formation, no matter who sets it up. It's still set up. Your Majesty's decree. Xiao Hua asked with a smile. Princess Xixia immediately lowered her head. She was so embarrassed that even her neck turned red. Yes, of course. Immortal Emperor Go Chen nodded and said, if you give up the 9 provinces cauldrons, it can be considered as contributing to the 9 provinces Great Formation. If the formation is successfully set up, my decree will still be effective. Immortal Emperor Go Chen had made it so obvious, but Xiao Hua still didn't feel at ease giving the 9 provinces cauldrons to Immortal Emperor Go Chen. He thought for a while and said, Your Majesty, let's wait for the Scholar Palace's master to come. I'll give the 9 provinces cauldrons to him. Oh, why? Immortal Emperor Go Chen asked curiously. Can't you give it to me? Hee, it's not suitable. Xiao Hua laughed and said, if the Immortal Palace sets up the formation successfully, then it's extremely good. But if. I'm just saying if. If the formation is not successful and Your Majesty takes the 9 provinces cauldrons, then how can I marry Princess Xixia? Without the 9 provinces cauldrons, I'm not sure. HMPH. Immortal Emperor Go Chen snorted, but he couldn't say anything. Xiao Hua did this to put the initiative in his hands, and no one could blame him for it. Seeing Immortal Emperor Go Chen's displeasure, Xiao Hua's eyes turned and said, how about this, Your Majesty? To show my sincerity, I'm willing to trade a parasol pill with Your Majesty. What do you think? Trade? Parasol pill? Immortal Emperor Go Chen didn't understand at first, but he suddenly understood and hurriedly nodded. 1 pill won't do, I need 2. Xiao Hua looked at Immortal Emperor Go Chen, then at the East Sea Empress and nodded. Okay. What do you want? Immortal Emperor Go Chen asked impatiently. The throne of creation, Xiao Hua answered without hesitation. Immortal Emperor Go Chen wasn't surprised by Xiao Hua's request. He thought for a while and nodded. Okay. Then, he didn't wait for Xiao Hua to take out the East Parasol pill and said to the East Sea Empress, Empress, give the throne to Master Xiao Lei. Yes, Your Majesty. The East Sea Empress agreed and activated the Jade Pool to take out the Throne of Creation. Xiao Hua received the Throne of Creation under the Grand Mist Ancestor's fiery gaze. Xiao Hua sighed with emotion as he gazed at the supreme throne of the Daoist sect. All those years ago at Yellow Flower Ridge, Xiao Yuhong had painstakingly refined the parasol pill, yet he had only exchanged it for some low-grade spirit stones. Yet at this moment, 2 parasol pills had actually been exchanged for such a treasure. If the deceased Xiao Yuhong were to find out about this, wouldn't he be furious to the point of stomping his feet? Xiao Hua recalled the bitter memories in his heart and put the throne into his space. Then, he took out the 2 parasol pills and gave them to Immortal Emperor Go Chen and the East Sea Empress. The Immortal Emperor and Empress received the parasol pills and carefully hid them. They understood that one parasol pill was equivalent to one life. Xiao. Seeing that the golden-winged Great Peng was about to speak, Xiao Hua hurriedly waved his hand and said, "This Xiao only has 5 of these pills. I just used one, so there are 4 left. Empress and His Majesty will each have 1. As for the remaining 2, Princess Xixia and I will each have 1. Everyone, don't speak anymore. If you want more pills, please help this Xiao find the spatial vein that leads to the Dawn Rain continent as soon as possible." All right. Seeing that Xiao Hua spoke so cleanly, the golden-winged Great Peng could only shut his mouth. He looked at the profound armored pentagram dragon and said, "Let's go. Today's matter has been settled. We should hurry back to the Great Sage Hall. We have sent the demon race army to the north of the 1,000 Demons' sacred territory. The entire 1,000 Demons' sacred territory is empty. If the strange insects attack, who can stop them? Hurry, hurry." The profound armored pentagram dragon was also anxious. As the 2 demon race great sages spoke, they bowed to everyone and flew away. Ao Yi, Ao Qian, the Dipankara archaic Buddha, and the Maitreya Buddha all took their leave. Then, Dongfang Qianghao and the primordial chaos ancestor left as well. Finally, Xiao Hua looked at the wretched space and said to Princess Xixia, "Xixia, let's go too." Princess Xixia nodded and respectfully knelt in front of Immortal Emperor Go Chen and the East Sea Emperor. She kowtowed and said, "Your Majesty, Empress, I'll take my leave now. Go. Be careful of yourself." Immortal Emperor Go Chen rarely said such warm words. Hearing this, Princess Xixia's tears flowed down again. As a girl born in a royal family, she still had some true feelings in her heart. Whenever she was touched, she would think of many things. The East Sea Empress also wiped her eyes and stretched out her hands. She obviously wanted to hug Princess Xixia. Cough cough. Immortal Emperor Go Chen coughed to remind her. However, the more he coughed, the more the East Sea Empress moved. She flew in front of Princess Xixia and hugged her. She said softly, "Child, you must take care of yourself in the future. If there's nothing else, you can stay in the Kunlun immortal realm." "Yes. Boy understands." Princess Xixia's heart was broken. Her previous resentment had faded a lot. She replied in a low voice while choking with sobs. Immortal Emperor Go Chen watched from the side and didn't say anything. He transmitted his voice to the immortal generals in the distance and ordered Bayan to come over. When Bayan arrived, Princess Xixia had already regained her composure. After Bayan greeted the immortal emperor and empress, Xiao Hua brought 2 people with him. The Thunder Immortal and the Celestial being guarded behind them. The 5 of them also flew into the sky. Seeing Princess Xixia leave with Xiao Hua, the East Sea Empress stared at the direction where Princess Xixia disappeared. She was reluctant to leave for a long time, as if Princess Xixia was flying slowly. The East Sea Empress understood that it would be difficult to meet Princess Xixia again after she left. Not to mention that Princess Xixia had to return to the Immortal Palace under orders. Just the Fortune Gate's trip to the West Sea was unpredictable. Previously, the East Sea Empress felt that Princess Xixia had Xiao Hua, a Daoist Grand Ascension Stage expert, by her side, so she didn't have to worry. However, after seeing how powerful the strange insect was today, she couldn't help but feel anxious again. Cough cough. Only when Immortal Emperor Go Chen coughed did the East Sea Empress retract her gaze. Her figure involuntarily flew out of the distance. It was completely different from the zither and zither at the Jade Lake. A trace of coldness appeared on the East Sea Empress' face. She said indifferently, "What? Can't I take a few more glances at my daughter? It's better than looking at the lowly servants of the Flower Medicine Palace, right? Empress, you're being unreasonable." Immortal Emperor Go Chen looked around and said in a flustered and exasperated manner, "We have a very pure relationship with Fairy Yu." "That's right. You guys are just chatting about life, cultivation, ideals, and ambitions," the East Sea Empress said in an incomparably sarcastic manner. "At most, when you're free, when no one is around, you go to the heavenly river to watch the sunrise and sunset, and watch the flowers bloom and wilt." "Damn it." Immortal Emperor Go Chen scolded, You dare to follow me? The East Sea Empress stretched and used her hand to tidy up the slightly messy hair under her pearl crown. She smiled and said, "Why do I need to follow you? In the entire Immortal Palace, who doesn't know Chenpage?" Immortal Emperor Go Chen waved his hand and said coldly, "Some people are too idle. It's starting to get boring. Looks like we need to find a new hall master for the Mystery Hall. That's your Majesty's responsibility. I don't recommend it." The East Sea Empress' lips curled into a faint mocking smile as she replied, "However, I recommend your Majesty to show some concern for Princess Qing. Unfortunately, before the East Sea Empress could finish, Immortal Emperor Go Chen rudely interrupted her and asked curiously, "We have a princess called Qing. Why don't we know about it?" Whoosh. The East Sea Empress' face turned pale instantly. She looked at Immortal Emperor Go Chen in disbelief and bit her lips. She said word by word, You're really so heartless." Immortal Emperor Go Chen didn't want to answer, but when he saw the sorrow in the East Sea Empress' eyes, he narrowed his eyes and said, "Am I heartless? Don't you think we were forced to do this?" After saying that, Immortal Emperor Go Chen didn't say anything else. He urged his body to charge towards a corner of the space. There were still some strange insects wreaking havoc there. Sun Jian and the others were leading immortal soldiers and immortal generals to kill them. When Tai Bai Jinxing and the other civil officials saw Immortal Emperor Go Chen coming over, they immediately revealed themselves and surrounded Immortal Emperor Go Chen like stars surrounding the moon. Sigh. The East Sea Empress sighed. She pressed down on her cloud and the phantom of the golden throne slowly disappeared. Then, she flew towards another direction. Princess Xixia followed Xiao Hua and flew out of the space. She was greeted by the arrival of dawn. High up in the sky to the west, the bright moon had faded away. Only a large part of the moon's silhouette was left hanging there all alone. Under the full moon, tall and proud mountains stood tall and straight above the earth. Most of the mountain ridges had just emerged from the night and were still dark. However, at the peak of the lone mountain, patches of bright yellow luster were like gilded gold, reflecting the mountain rocks, withered plum trees, and branches. Wasn't that the smiling face of the sun peeking out from the east? Above the full moon, several eagle-like birds flew against the wind. The feathers on their heads were blown up high by the wind. An indescribable arrogance and unyielding aura was emitted from their flight path. Looking at the inside of the mountain peak under the full moon again, there was another flock of pigeon-like birds flashing their spotlessly white wings, circling and circling around the small foothills. Although they couldn't compare with the sky, and they also didn't have the pride of an eagle, the whistling sound of the dancing wind, and the clear cry of Gu, also made Xiao Hua, who was looking at all of this with his eyes, feel warm in his heart. How can I let the strange insects trample on it? Xiao Hua looked at the outline of the full moon, and then looked at the rising sun behind him. The bright yellow sunlight was currently illuminating the earth. He slightly narrowed his eyes and thought to himself. However, when he thought of the strange insect, that incomparable heavy and powerless feeling was born from the bottom of his heart. The strange insects are really innumerable. That strange insect king is really powerful. Xiao Hua thought and glanced at the celestial and the thunderbolt immortal. Now, the two clones were also frowning. It seemed that they also saw the uncertainty and difficulty of the future from the previous fierce battle. Darling Xiao. Princess Xixia was at the side, looking at Xiao Hua's rock-like face. She also noticed the weed-like melancholy between Xiao Hua's eyebrows. She said in a low voice, "The strange insect is very powerful, but I feel that its intelligence is not high. The human race and demon race of our 3 continents are the dragon race. All of them have high intelligence. If we use our intelligence to fight against their strength, we might not necessarily have no chance of winning. Moreover, I feel that the 3 continents and the 4 seas have been peaceful for a long time. The internal strife between the various sects and races is becoming more and more unbearable and out of control. The disaster of the strange insects may not necessarily be a bad thing. It's good. At least it can make the 3 continents and the 4 seas work together to resist the foreign enemies." Xiao Hua knew that Princess Xixia was comforting him. He smiled and nodded. "You're right. I remember that there's a saying among the Confucian cultivators, united for a long time, divided for a long time, united for a long time. Now, perhaps because of the strange insects, the human race, the demon race, and the dragon race have reached a period of union. However, when Xiao Hua said this, he sighed again. Unfortunately, the price of this union is unavoidably a bit high. In this war between humans and insects, who knows how many cultivators will fall? How many years of cultivation? In the end, it will all turn into nothing. We'll die either way. The Thunderbolt Immortal shouted unhappily. What's the difference between dying in the hands of our own people and dying in the mouth of the strange insects? Of course there's a difference. The celestial being was not to be outdone. He also shouted. Dying in the battle with the strange insects, the name is pleasant to hear. Dying in the internal strife, the name is disgusting. Hihi, it's rare that fellow celestial being actually knows about this. Xiao Hua smiled. He looked at Bayan, who was standing beside him, and said, Bayan, I presume you know where the Soaring Dragon Mountain range is. Can you take us there? Princess Zi Xia already knew about Xiao Hua's problem of getting lost. Without waiting for Bayan to speak, she first pursed her lips and said with a smile, since the sect master has ordered, this little girl doesn't dare to disobey. Masters, this way please. After saying this, Princess Zi Xia raised her hand and invited Xiao Hua to fly in the direction of the Soaring Dragon Mountain range. Thank you for your trouble, thank you for your trouble. Xiao Hua also put on an act and cupped his hands towards Princess Zi Xia. After Bayan accompanied Princess Zi Xia, Xiao Hua, the Thunderbolt Immortal, and the celestial being flew up again. However, after just half a cup of tea's time, Xiao Hua's figure suddenly slowed down. He raised his hand and said, Wait, what's wrong? Princess Zi Xia was somewhat puzzled. She looked at Xiao Hua with her beautiful eyes. Alas, the thing that this Xiao is afraid of has finally come. Xiao Hua sighed. His figure flashed and he directly landed on the ground. The place where Xiao Hua landed was precisely a basin. This basin was about 100 li in size. Inside it was a medium-sized town. The center of the town was at the center of the basin. There were many pavilions and courtyards built here. In the surroundings of the town, that is, in the basin that was surrounded by mountains and rivers, there were more than 10 small villages. This basin's climate was humid and the sun was abundant. It looked like a livable place. However, at this time, everyone had already flown into the town, but they still didn't see a single shadow, not to mention the shadow of a human. Even the ordinary poultry, livestock, and even the fish in the rivers around the village couldn't be seen. Dead silence. Dead silence. There were only the occasional whistling of the wind and the crying of the forests. Xiao Hua's divine sense had already swept over the place. At this time, he was standing in midair. His eyes were filled with anger. He lowered his voice and said, when this Xiao received the news of the attack of the strange insects, he still felt lucky. After all, the strange insects that this Xiao encountered all devoured true qi. Perhaps they wouldn't harm ordinary humans. However, the news of the Elysium world made this Xiao secretly afraid. This Xiao didn't understand why those strange insects would attack ordinary humans. However, looking at those strange insects that looked like ink dots at the Jade Lake conference, this Xiao understood that the strange insects were the same as the cultivators of the 3 continents. The largest number of them were those strange insects that hadn't formed a shell. These strange insects simply devoured true qi and couldn't form a shell. Perhaps they could only rely on devouring the flesh and blood of humans and demons. To form a shell? Princess Zi Xia and Bayan looked at the basin that was like a dead area. They were somewhat sorrowful in their hearts. Princess Zi Xia said in a low voice, if only we had come a little earlier. Alas! Xiao Hua let out a long sigh. He released his divine sense. The netherworld origin power rolled out again to see if he could find any wandering souls that hadn't fallen into the cycle of reincarnation. However, when he released his divine sense, he couldn't help but be dumbfounded. Because in the entire basin, there were countless vengeful souls. They were all miserably floating around in the air. It seemed that none of them had fallen into the underworld. Ayo, what's going on? Xiao Hua didn't dare to be negligent. As he hurriedly collected the wandering souls, He thought to himself, could it be that the living beings killed by these strange insects can't be reincarnated? If that's the case, after the war, regardless of whether our human race wins or loses, the 3 continents. When he thought of this, Xiao Hua almost didn't dare to continue thinking. How could the 3 continents that were filled with wandering souls be a world full of sunshine? How could the human race survive in this place with an open and upright heart? No, no. We must shorten the time of the war as much as possible. We can't place our hopes on the war. Xiao Hua had already made his decision. This Xiao must find a way back and bring back a huge amount of spiritual herbs and other things. Otherwise, after the war, the 3 continents will definitely be destroyed. Fuck, this strange insect. Where did it come from? Why is it so strange and so powerful? The lightning daoist naturally knew of Xiao Hua's astonishment and couldn't help but exclaim. The origin of the strange insect is no longer important. Xiao Hua collected all the wandering souls into the spaces inside. With a wave of his hand, everyone flew up again. Only then did he speak again. The important thing is that the strange insect is already here. Previously, this Xiao only wanted to send all the Fortune Gate's disciples to the Western Sea. Now, it seems that the Xiao Empire's people are also not safe. If possible, it's better to take them all into the Kunlun paradise. Princess Xixia was already used to Xiao Hua's rotten good intentions. However, when she heard Xiao Hua's words, she still persuaded him, my dear Xiao, although the Xiao Empire's people are your people, they are also the people of the hidden immortal continent. They are the masters of their own thoughts. Although your intentions are good and the Kunlun paradise is also excellent, you must know that whether to go or not should be left to them. Xiao Hua nodded. At this time, he was already a little anxious, so how could he think so much? He said to Baian, when we return to the Soaring Dragon mountain range, tell Fujiwen about this and let him inform the Xiao Empire's disciples to prepare to move to the Shenhua continent. Yes, this disciple understands. Baian hurriedly agreed. My dear Xiao, don't panic. Seeing Xiao Hua in such a state, Princess Xixia was even more worried and whispered to him through voice transmission. Xiao Hua was not panicking, but he felt uncomfortable seeing a city with a population of several 100,000 being destroyed by the strange insect. Hearing Princess Xixia's considerate reminder, he smiled and said, don't worry. I know very well what I should do. All right. Princess Xixia smiled and said, as long as you know it. My Fortune Gate still needs to rely on you, the sect master. Princess Xixia's words indeed had a double meaning. Although she did not mention herself, the words my Fortune Gate immediately revealed her thoughts. I understand. Xiao Hua smiled, but then he thought of Princess Qing Qing and wanted to say something, but when the words reached his mouth, he swallowed them back down. Xiao Hua believed that Princess Qing Qing was more experienced in dealing with this kind of matter than him. On the way back to the Fortune Dao Palace from the Lingyun Side Hall, Xiao Hua had been paying attention to the surrounding situation. Fortunately, other than the tragedy in the basin, he did not find any abnormalities, not even a trace of the strange insect. However, when he thought about the quietness and the numerous strange insects in the veins of the void, Xiao Hua couldn't help but feel his scalp go numb. He clearly knew that the common people of the hidden immortal continent were sitting on top of a huge volcano. This volcano could erupt with lava at any time, destroying their lives and lives. Xiao Hua's worry wasn't groundless. Before the familiar Soaring Dragon mountain range could be seen in the distance, Xiao Hua's complexion suddenly changed. He exclaimed in a low voice, oh no, not good. Following Xiao Hua's cry, the lightning daoist and the heavenly being had already teleported away. Xiao Hua took out the Kunlun mirror and shouted, Xixia, quickly enter the Kunlun immortal realm. The strange insects are attacking my Soaring Dragon mountain range. Princess Xixia was the most sensible person, and she did not ask a single word. She pulled Baian and entered the Shenhua continent. As for Xiao Hua, after receiving the two of them, his eyes flashed fiercely. Lightning surged around his body, and he turned into a flash as he rushed towards the Soaring Dragon mountain range. When Xiao Hua arrived, the entire Soaring Dragon mountain range was in ruins, just like Immortal Emperor Go Chen's Lingyun Side Hall. However, The Fortune Gate's disciples were much stronger than the Immortal Palace's immortal soldiers and immortal generals. One by one, they set up battle formations in the sky, on the ground, and on the mountain range, killing countless strange insects in an orderly manner. On top of that, the Du Tian star formation that Xiao Huasu had laid out earlier had already been devoured by the strange insects. Many of the insects were still pouncing on those weak points, greedily gnawing on them, completely ignoring the Fortune Gate disciples' attack. Looking at the sky several thousand feet above the soaring Dragon Mountain range, everything within 1,000 miles was already in chaos. Layers of void fragments mixed with raging waves of dragon chi were wreaking havoc in the sky. Kill. The lightning Daoist was the first to rush back. Hundreds of lightning swords covered half of the sky as they surged towards a strange insect king that was also several thousand feet in size. This strange insect king's huge tail was also fighting against Daoist Min's dragon body. Daoist Min's strength was considered outstanding among the 10 patriarchs, but at this moment, he was actually on par with this strange insect king. The lightning Daoist's lightning swords fell on the strange insect king's body. Just like before, a layer of extremely strange spatial laws emerged from the gaps of the strange insect king's body. Most of the lightning swords missed, and only a small portion of the lightning swords fell on the strange insect king's body. Even so, it only made the strange insect king's body expand by half like a wave. The Celestial didn't participate in the battle. Instead, he watched coldly, as if he was thinking about something. Xiao Hua landed in front of the strange insect king. With a sweep of his divine sense, he found that this strange insect king was completely different from the strange insect king that escaped from the Immortal Palace. Shocked, he pounced on the strange insect king without hesitation. Then, he threw a low-grade spiritual stone that he obtained from the Dawn Rain continent into the strange insect king's devouring void. It was quite strange. If the strange insect king didn't have intelligence, it could lead a group of strange insects to attack the Ascendant Cloudside Palace and the Fortune Daoist Palace. Moreover, it knew that there were 2 of them working together, one in the light and one in the dark. However, if the strange insect king had intelligence, it wouldn't hesitate to devour anything that contained vital energy within its devouring range. It wouldn't care if there was something wrong with it at all. The spiritual stone didn't react at all when it fell into the strange insect king's mouth. Not only because the vital energy contained in the spiritual stone was too little, but also because this low-grade spiritual stone was formed before the Dawn Rain continent's spiritual energy changed. It had no effect on the strange insect king. Xiao Hua wasn't surprised. He took out a marrow cleansing pill from his storage bag and threw it in casually. This marrow cleansing pill was also obtained by Xiao Hua in his early years. It had been many years since he left the Shenhua continent. Fortunately, the array formation in the storage bag didn't collapse. The mutated spiritual energy contained in the marrow cleansing pill was still there. When the pill fell into the strange insect king's mouth, the strange insect king's body immediately swelled out of control. Boom! Seeing the strange insect king explode inch by inch, Xiao Hua's heart skipped a beat. He hurriedly said, "Fellow Taoists, tentacles, hind legs, and tail spike." The Celestial, Thunderbolt Immortal, and Daoist Minute naturally understood Xiao Hua's thoughts. The Celestial's body swayed, and 6 arms stretched out, pulling out 2 tentacles from the exploding tentacles. The Thunderbolt Immortal waved his hand, and both Xiao Hua and Daoist Minute took down the 2 huge hind legs. Daoist Minute was already fighting with the strange insect king's tail. At this moment, he used his dragon tail to pull out the even bigger tail spike. Thunderbolt Immortal. Xiao Hua didn't say anything. He waved the Kunlun mirror and said, "There's a saying in the human race, an eye for an eye." At this moment, we don't have any good methods to deal with the strange insects. If we use the strange insect king's hind legs to deal with the strange insects, I think it will be useful. My spirit-slaying vital light has already obtained the essence of the ordinary strange insect's hind legs, and its effect has increased significantly. If we refine the strange insect king's hind legs, tail tip, and other essences into it, won't it become a powerful weapon to kill the strange insects? You don't have to worry about the hidden immortal continent. Go back to the Shenhua continent and refine the spirit-slaying vital light successfully. Okay. The Thunderbolt Immortal nodded in agreement. He took the spoils and was about to return to the Shenhua continent. However, at this moment, Xiao Hua thought of something again. He hurriedly called out, all right. The Thunderbolt Immortal simply stood in mid-air and said with a faint smile, fellow Daoist, think about it carefully. It won't be too late for I to go back after we're done talking. Haha, there's nothing else. Xiao Hua laughed and said, however, I remember. My Fortune Gate wants to build transmission arrays on the 3 mainlands. The Shenhua continent's Fortune Gate fellow Daoist is much clearer than I. Which disciples can build transmission arrays and which disciples are reliable, I need fellow Daoist's help to choose. The Thunderbolt Immortal was happy to hear that. He nodded and said, rest assured, fellow Daoist, I will choose the disciples to build the transmission arrays. In a while, you can come in and ask them to leave. Also, there are many disciples who can build the transmission arrays. I will also ask them to draw up a list for you. Good. Xiao Hua cupped his fists and said, I'll have to trouble fellow Daoist. Subsequently, the Thunderbolt Immortal hurried in. Not long after, a jade eye appeared. Xiao Hua received it and looked at it carefully before putting it away. With the strange insect king's death, the soaring dragon mountain range strange insects seemed to have received a bugle call to retreat. The frenzied attacks on the Fortune Gate's disciples immediately retreated like the tide. The Fortune Gate's disciples also relaxed and slowed down their attacks. Xiao Hua flew high into the sky, revealing his golden body as he shouted, disciples, these strange insects not only attack cultivators, but also ordinary people. If they are allowed to escape, who knows how many ordinary people will die in their mouths. Listen to my command, kill. Xiao Hua's heart was caring for the world, and he had achieved the Buddha fruit of Nanwu Great Compassion Guanyin Bodhisattva. Under his influence, the Fortune Gate's disciples also placed compassion and conscience as their #1 priority. When they heard that the strange insects would also attack ordinary people, their already relaxed fighting spirit was stirred up again. They roared and pounced on the strange insect. If the strange insect king wanted to escape, Xiao Hua and the others might not be able to stop it. However, if the strange insects below the strange insect king wanted to escape, they would have to ask Xiao Hua's permission first. Xiao Hua and the others did not join the battle. Instead, they stood in the air around the soaring dragon mountain range and jointly sealed off the entire space. On one hand, they prevented the strange insects from escaping, and on the other hand, they observed the strange insects' manipulation of space law. This battle was so intense that the sky and earth darkened. They had been fighting for 3 whole days. Just like Xiao Hua's command, not a single strange insect managed to escape from the soaring dragon mountain range. Of course, after the strange insects were exterminated, many Fortune Gate's disciples were also killed. While the disciples were counting the casualties, Xiao Hua collected the souls of the Fortune Gate's disciples who were killed by the strange insects. Then, he led the heavenly being and Daoist Minute to the Fortune Gate's damaged Fortune Palace. Just as Xiao Hua sat down, a 5-colored ray of light flew over from the distance. Xiao Hua knew that it was Wen Chu returning from the Immortal Palace. Fellow Immortal Xiao. Wen Chu landed on the Fortune Gate's Fortune Gate and exclaimed in surprise, our Fortune Gate's Fortune Gate was also attacked by the strange insects. Isn't that so? Xiao Hua smiled bitterly. It should have happened at the same time as the High Cloud Palace. Fortunately, my Fortune Gate's Fortune Gate has Daoist Minute, otherwise, this Xiao would regret it for the rest of his life. Speaking of this, Xiao Hua turned to Daoist Minute and said, fellow Daoist, please tell me the origin of this matter. Daoist Minute nodded and explained the origin of the matter. Similar to Xiao Hua's prediction and the attack on the High Cloud Palace, the soaring dragon mountain range disciples were also attacked by the strange insects when they were collecting spiritual herbs and elixirs. Those strange insects devoured many of the spiritual herbs and elixirs. This strange insect king is really powerful. In the end, Daoist Minute said to Xiao Hua, with Ai's ability, I don't have any special methods on the hidden immortal continent. Of course, the Pangu axe should be effective, but using the Pangu axe to kill the strange insects, isn't it making a mountain out of a molehill? Fellow Daoist, you're wrong. Xiao Hua explained, although it's a strange insect, the strange insect king you saw has already reached the peak of the 9th grade of origin force. Moreover, it was born from the void. The spatial laws that we have painstakingly comprehended are just natural in its eyes. When it's in danger, fellow Daoist should make a move when you need to. Next, I ask for monthly votes. If the monthly votes exceed 100, I will add more chapters. Third, I ask for recommendation support. If the recommendation exceeds 1,000, I will add more chapters. How Xiao Hua went against the light to become a saint, it will all depend on everyone. The third place thanks. Chapter 4678. Yes, I understand. Daoist Yun said with a smile, if you don't use the elixir to kill the enemy, I will still use Pangu Axe in the end. Xiao Hua didn't need to explain too much about why the elixir could kill the king of the strange insects. Wen Chu nodded and said, if that's the case, whether it's setting up the 9 regions great array or facing the strange insects head-on, the price paid by the 3 continents and the 4 seas is too high. It's better to find a way to return to the Dawn Rain continent. However, we don't have to be too optimistic. Xiao Hua smiled bitterly. That day, Fairy Xingyu said clearly that returning to the Dawn Rain continent from the 3 continents is tantamount to daydreaming. There's no need to consider it at all. And the masters of the Supreme Pure Palace and Jade Pure Palace can only use the reincarnation method to reach the Dawn Rain continent. Presumably, the Immortal Palace can't do it. Since the Immortal Palace can't do it, the Thunder Temple, Great Sage Hall, and Dragon Island may not have it. Alas, what a headache. Didn't Fairy Xingyu say before she left? When Chu asked curiously, she left something in the moon-embracing palace that may be useful to us. Why don't you hurry and take a look? I naturally want to go. Xiao Hua replied, I even wanted to go as soon as I flew out of the Lingyun Side Palace. However, didn't I want to wait for you? Your 9 regions great array is related to the people of 9 regions, and it's also related to Ai's happiness. Haha, then why don't you hurry up and give it to me? Wen Chu raised his hand and laughed. Yes. Xiao Hua nodded and opened his mouth. Puff. A mouthful of 5-colored true qi spurted out, and the 9 regions cauldrons flew out with a majestic aura. Just when Wen Chu was about to collect it, Xiao Hua exhorted again, fellow immortal, remember, if you fail to set up the array, you must take it back. I was really bitten by a snake. If Old Man Gauchen's decree is true, without the 9 regions cauldrons, I won't even have the chance to marry Princess Xixia. Fellow immortal, don't worry. Wen Chu said very seriously, I will definitely put your happiness as my first priority. Once the array fails, I will immediately take back all the 9 regions cauldrons. I hope you succeed. Xiao Hua loosened his grip, and Ren Once put away the Jojo cauldron. He said, since you've succeeded in laying down the formation, it has saved me a lot of energy. I like to take advantage of others like this. Alright, I still have to go back and familiarize myself with the 9 prefectures array diagram and the array formation secret technique. I won't be staying here any longer. Wen Chu stood up and said, right, you also have the 9 cauldrons united heart secret technique, right? Xiao Hua suddenly asked. I presume Immortal Emperor Go Chen won't be hiding anything here, right? That's true. Wen Chu saw Xiao Hua ask and asked curiously, how did you know? If I didn't know, why would I insist on having you come to the 9 continents cauldrons this time? Xiao Hua replied with a cold smile. As he spoke, Wen Chu handed over a jade eye and said with a smile, I've posted a document before. You can't let others see this jade eye. He, it's a pity that man proposes but God disposes. You and I are the same person. Xiao Hua took the jade eyes without any pressure. After using the eye-clearing technique to look at it, he nodded and said, this secret technique is even more simplified than the one that Old Man Gauchen gave me. It seems like he gave me a complete one this time. Subsequently, Xiao Hua made a copy of the jade eye that Immortal Emperor Go Chen gave him and gave it to Wen Chu to take away. Wen Chu came in a hurry and left in a hurry. By the time Liu Yi and the others packed up and arrived at the Fortune Dao Palace, Wen Chu had already disappeared. After Liu Yi told him about the losses in the Soaring Dragon Mountain range, Xiao Hua nodded and said, I presume you all know about today's battle. What this old man said earlier was not false. These strange insects are truly alien species, and the three mainlands have no means of restraining them. Today, it was just a small soaring dragon mountain range, yet our fortune gate lost so many disciples. In the future, if we expand the range of our defenses, won't there be more casualties? Yes, this disciple understands. Liu Yi was the first to answer. Master, please rest assured. Although we were not slow in adapting to the situation today, we were still inexperienced in dealing with these strange insects. We didn't know the strength and weaknesses of the strange insects, which was why we suffered so many losses. This disciple can guarantee that if we encounter the strange insects again, the battle situation will definitely not be like this. Sigh, our Fortune Gate's disciples are so strong, yet they still can't deal with those strange insects. If it were other scholarly cultivator families or ordinary civilians, how many casualties would they suffer? Fu Jiwen couldn't help sighing. There were originally some benefits. However, this benefit is nothing compared to the attack of the strange insect. Xiao Hua replied angrily. Then, he told her about what had happened in the Jade Lake Conference. The disciples were overjoyed when they heard that the supremes of the various sects had agreed to the development of the Dao sect in the West Ocean. As long as the ice that sealed the Dao sect was broken, the development of the Dao sect would be like a germinating seed, growing stronger and stronger. After Xiao Hua invited Princess Zixia and Bayan out, he took out Immortal Emperor Go Chen's imperial edict. All the disciples congratulated Xiao Hua, Princess Zixia, Fu Jiwen, and Bayan. After a short moment of liveliness, the sadness and fear in everyone's eyes lessened. Xiao Hua ordered, "Hurry up and pack up. Liu Yi will take care of the details. Who should be sent to the West Ocean to scout? Where should our Fortune Gate take root? You don't need this old man to think too much, right?" "Yes, this disciple will take care of it," Liu Yi respectfully said. Jiang Hong went to the West Ocean earlier, and this disciple had already informed her of Master's decision to go to the West Ocean before Master left. Presumably, she has already made arrangements there. After we pack up, we will directly head to the West Ocean. Well done. Xiao Hua smiled and took out a Peiyuan pill. "This is a Peiyuan pill, I'll bestow it to you." Peiyuan pill? Liu Yi was confused, but he still respectfully received the pill and replied, "Many thanks, Master." Seeing Liu Yi's confusion, Wang Bianfei reminded him, "Senior brother, don't forget what Master said earlier. How he killed the strange insect king." Sigh. Hearing this, Liu Yi subconsciously sucked in a breath of cold air and hurriedly explained the Peiyuan pill carefully. He kowtowed and said, "Disciple thanks Master for the generous gift. Get up." Xiao Hua raised his hand and helped Liu Yi up. He smiled and said, "Don't underestimate this little Peiyuan pill. Master obtained it when he was refining qi on the Dawn Rain continent. It contains the Dawn Rain continent's mutated heaven and earth spiritual energy. If you come across any strange insects that you can't deal with or escape from, you can deal with them as much as you want." "Master, can this pill be divided?" Liu Yi sincerely asked. If possible, this disciple can divide this pill into several portions and give them to several senior and junior brothers. Logically speaking, it's possible. Xiao Hua nodded. However, if it's divided now, the mutated true qi will be diluted by the heaven and earth spiritual energy of the three continents, and it might even disappear. As for Wang Bianfei and the rest, you don't have to worry about them. Although Master doesn't have much of this type of pill, there should be enough for each of you to get one. As he spoke, Xiao Hua took out a few jade bottles and gave one to each of Princess Zixia and Bianfei. After distributing the pills, Xiao Hua said to Fu Jiwen, "There's also Xiao Empire. This old man wants to move the entire Xiao Empire to Shenhua continent so that those pitiful commoners can escape this calamity. Yes, if Master has the heart, this disciple will arrange it now. After all, the population of Xiao Empire is already extremely terrifying. It won't be easy to move them all to Shenhua continent." "Ari, that's right. Master also wanted to go immediately and use my divine ability to move them. However, they are living well now. If I suddenly ask them to leave their home, they might not be willing. Therefore, Master wants to follow Princess Zixia's instructions and explain the cause of the matter to them. Then, News of the strange insects will definitely come from other places in hidden immortal continent. At that time, Master will move them to Shenhua continent, and it will be even more natural. Master is right, this disciple understands. Fu Jiwen nodded and asked again, however, what about that matter? If the commoners of Xiao Empire are all gone, then it will be impossible to find out the truth. It's very important to lure the monarch into a trap, but the lives of the commoners are more important. Xiao Hua shook his head and said, if there is still no result by then, Master won't dare to play with them anymore. I will directly search their souls and kill whoever I see. All right, this disciple understands. This disciple will listen to Master's orders. Fu Jiwen replied and retreated to the side. Bianfei, use Zhai Xinglu to inform all the cultivators of the 3 continents about the strange insects. Xiao Hua muttered to himself for a moment and instructed, let them raise their vigilance and be prepared to deal with it. Yes, this disciple understands. Bianfei hurriedly replied. There is still one more important matter. Xiao Hua then told them about the Fortune Gate's disciples building transmission arrays in the 3 continents. When Liu Yi and the others heard this, they understood the importance of this matter. They were all beaming with joy, as if they could already see the rise of the Dao Gate. Xiao Hua handed over the list of names that Thunderbolt Immortal had drafted to Liu Yi. Then, he took out the Kunlun mirror and sent out the disciples who were building the teleportation formation to Liu Yi. After the matter of the transmission arrays, Xiao Hua discussed some other matters with the disciples. In the end, he said, all right, all of you can leave. Once you're done packing, you can head to the Western Sea. Yes. The disciples left the Fortune Gate Palace, leaving only Princess Xixia and the heavenly being behind. Xixia. Xiao Hua smiled and said, you also go and arrange the matters in Zhai Xinglu, then wait for my news. Come with me to see Fairy Xing Yu's moon-embracing palace. This concubine understands. Princess Xixia agreed with a smile and flew out. Then, Xiao Hua said to the heavenly being, fellow Daoist, stay behind as well. Follow fellow Daoist Bianfei to protect my Fortune Gate's disciples as they head to the Western Sea, give it a recommendation vote, collect it, gift it, and thank you for all your support. Chapter 4679. Of course. The celestial being did not decline and nodded in agreement. Seeing that everything had been arranged properly, Xiao Hua sat cross-legged on the jade chair. However, he did not meditate. Instead, his mind raced as he recalled what had just happened, as well as what Fairy Xingyu and Shuji had said, and carefully calculated. Day and night had only alternated several times in the Fortune Palace when Princess Xixia arrived. Xiao Hua opened his eyes and cupped his fists towards the celestial being and fellow Daoist Kwong. I'll leave the Fortune Gate's disciples to you 2 fellow Daoist. Rest assured, fellow Daoists. The celestial being and fellow Daoist Kwong did not get up. They merely smiled and nodded. Xiao Hua waved his sleeves and swept Princess Xixia up into the sky, disappearing in an instant. Dozens of days later, on the shore of the West Sea, a faint brilliance flashed in the gloomy sky. Xiao Hua's figure appeared in a distorted space. He was not in a hurry to escape from the void. Instead, he first released his divine sense to take a closer look. After seeing clearly, he let out a long sigh of relief and jumped out of the void. He laughed inwardly. Damn it, I didn't touch the wrong place this time. If I flew the wrong way again, Xixia would laugh at me. As he spoke, Xiao Hua took out the Kunlun mirror and released Princess Xixia. Contrary to Xiao Hua's expectations, Princess Xixia looked around and did not say anything. She only asked curiously, Xiao Hua, didn't you bring me to the moon-embracing palace? How did you come to the West Sea? Xiao Hua looked helpless and puzzled. Xixia, I want to ask you, how do you know this is the West Sea? Not the East Sea, North Sea, or South Sea? Why do I think this West Sea is no different from the other 3 seas? Hehe, that's too simple. Do you want to know? Princess Xixia asked with a smile. Xiao Hua's head nodded like a chick pecking at rice. He replied repeatedly, of course, of course. I won't tell you. Princess Xixia covered her mouth and laughed. All right. Xiao Hua scratches his head and says with a smile, if you don't want to say it, then don't say it. Darling Xiao. Seeing that there was no one beside them, Princess Xixia wasn't that easily embarrassed. She held Xiao Hua's right arm and said in a low voice, "Actually, there's no special reason. This concubine has been used to seeing the various territories of the 3 continents and 4 seas since childhood. Whenever I see a scenery, I can roughly judge where it is. If I had known earlier, I would have let you lead the way." Xiao Hua smiled as he took out a jade eye and handed it over to Princess Xixia. Darling Xiao doesn't let this concubine lead the way because he cares about this concubine. Princess Xixia was very understanding. This concubine understands very well. Furthermore, this concubine's flying speed is incomparable to Darling Xiao's. Only by arriving here can this concubine share Darling Xiao's burdens. Princess Xixia took the jade eye ring and used her golden eye ring to examine it. Taking advantage of this time, Xiao Hua looks at the vast West Sea and says with emotion, "When Fairy Xingyu talked about the moon-embracing palace, I also thought it was some scenic spot in the hidden immortal continent. It wasn't until Fairy Xingyu gave me the jade eye ring that I knew the moon-embracing palace was in the West Sea. Otherwise, even if we looked for it in the hidden immortal continent, I'm afraid we would never find it." Of course, female cultivators are meticulous. Princess Xixia returns the jade eye ring to Xiao Hua and replies, "Fairy Xingyu doesn't want others to enter her former residence. Naturally, she has to build the moon-embracing palace in a place that others don't know about. Moreover, the hidden immortal continent is monitored by His Majesty with the clear sky mirror. It's not easy for Fairy Xingyu to build the moon-embracing palace. This West Sea is too big. Not to mention building one moon-embracing palace, even if there are 10 of them, they won't be discovered by others." After saying this, Princess Xixia looks around and urges the cloud under her feet. She pulls Xiao Hua and flies towards a place filled with smoke. Princess Xixia's cloud naturally flies very slowly. Although Xiao Hua is somewhat anxious, he also knows that he shouldn't rush. He only opens his illusion breaker eyes occasionally and looks at the void on his left. Princess Xixia soon notices Xiao Hua's strange behavior and asks in a low voice, "Xiao Hua, are you a bit anxious? Or are you looking for the location of the moon-embracing palace?" Xiao Hua nods and replies, "To be honest, I'm a bit anxious. I want to quickly find the moon-embracing palace and find the way back to the Dawn Rain continent." However, when he spoke up to here, Xiao Hua let out a long sigh, and his figure stopped. Sadness appears on his face. "Xiao Hua, what's wrong with you?" Princess Xixia is alarmed. She hastily holds Xiao Hua's hand and asks in a low voice, "Actually." Xiao Hua clenches his teeth and replies, "Actually, it doesn't matter if we find the moon-embracing palace or not." "Why?" Princess Xixia is even more puzzled. "Didn't you say? You want to find the moon-embracing palace, find the things that Fairy Xingyu left behind and find the way back to the Dawn Rain continent. Then, bring the disciples back to the Dawn Rain continent and get a lot of spiritual herbs." Xiao Hua bites his lips and looks at the gloomy dark clouds. He shakes his head and says, "This is just because I can't bear to disappoint the disciples. This is just a very beautiful idea of mine, or it could be said that this is just me deceiving myself, because Fairy Xingyu said long ago that there is no spatial meridian that can lead to the Dawn Rain continent from the 3 continents. There is a huge secret behind this. This secret is so big that even she, an immortal, doesn't dare to say it. So, what we are doing now is just a futile effort. An unprecedented war is absolutely unavoidable. And our 3 continents and 4 seas, after the war, the survivors may not even be 40%. And these are the cultivators with divine abilities. Those powerless common people, ordinary demons and sea race, may be able to survive for a period of time." As he speaks, Xiao Hua points, "When I was traveling through the void just now, I saw a lot of strange insects. The void is filled with a world-destroying aura. Even with the strength of the grand ascension stage of the human race, our hearts are trembling with fear. How can the other cultivators resist? Right now, the void can still allow us to pass through, but when the strange insects really attack the 3 continents, all teleportation formations and teleportation won't be able to be used. We basically know that the common people are being attacked, but I'm afraid we won't be able to rush over. I really hate it. My strength has clearly reached the peak of the 3 continents. I can clearly do something for all living beings, but even though I can kill thousands of strange insects, I can't stop this monstrous catastrophe. I've always scoffed at the saying that man can conquer the heavens. I feel that man is insignificant in the world and must comprehend the will of the heavens and the will of the earth. But now, I'd rather man can conquer the heavens. I can kill these world-destroying insects with my own strength. Xiao Hua's words were a bit disordered because his heart was in chaos. Xiao Hua's eyes were a bit moist because his heart was broken. These words didn't contain any heroic words, nor did they contain any ambition. In fact, there was even some dejection, some resentment, and some helplessness. But in Princess Zixia ears, it was different. At first, Princess Zixia was a bit flustered because she had never seen such a weak side to a supremacy stage cultivator. If even a supremacy stage cultivator lost confidence in the matters of the world, then how could the 3 continents be saved? But seeing Xiao Hua so real and so compassionate in his heart, Princess Zixia's fluster gradually faded. She gazed at this man whose charm came from his heart, whose charm came from his kindness, and her heart was also intoxicated. Some people said that powerful male cultivators were the most favored by female cultivators. Some people said that powerful male cultivators were the most favored by female cultivators. Some people even said that beautiful male cultivators were the most favored by female cultivators. Princess Zixia had seen countless such male cultivators in her life. However, they were all like passers-by in life, floating clouds in the sky. Princess Zixia didn't have any impression of them. Only Xiao Hua, this little monk, left a deep impression in her heart. Sometimes, even Princess Zixia herself didn't know why she was so reluctant to part with Xiao Hua. If it was fate, then it could naturally be explained. If it was interesting, then it could naturally be explained. If it was loneliness, then it could naturally be explained. However, after seeing Xiao Hua, a supreme expert at the peak of the 9th level of origin energy, actually lose his Tao heart for the sake of the survival of the 3 continents, Princess Zixia finally understood that she had fallen in love with Xiao Hua not only because of his humor, his warmth, his gentleness, his kindness, his breadth of mind, and even his pettiness, but because Xiao Hua was a cultivator who lived in life. No matter how strong he was still a human. His heart was soft, and he also had perseverance. Only this kind of person could make her heart feel at ease. Xiao Hua. Princess Zixia faintly smiled. She let go of Xiao Hua's arm, stretched out her arms, and gently said, "Come, let this concubine hug you." Princess Zixia's words caused Xiao Hua to be stunned. However, when he looked at Princess Zixia's indescribably beautiful face, as well as those indescribable lines, and saw the affection in her eyes that was as deep as the sea, Xiao Hua's heart couldn't help but feel at ease. He closed his eyes, opened his arms, and hugged Princess Zixia. His mouth and nose were immersed in her softness and fragrance. The long-awaited silence came like a tide, making Xiao Hua feel like he was falling asleep. Xiao Hua. Princess Zixia hugged Xiao Hua, stroked his hair, and kissed him on the head with her red lips. She said in a low voice, "You're tired." "Yes, I'm really tired." Xiao Hua replied in a low voice, "I'm really too tired." Princess Zixia had already learned a lot of secrets from Xiao Hua. However, she still didn't know that ever since Xiao Hua was stranded in the 3 continents, other than the 100 years he spent peacefully cultivating in the West Ocean, he never went into seclusion again. Every day and every night, wasn't he running around for survival and dealing with difficult matters? The tens of thousands of years of cultivation in the heavenly prison, rather than saying that Xiao Hua was cultivating, it would be better to say that Xiao Hua spurred himself to work hard, to fight against life and death in order to not let himself sink into depression in the darkness of solitude and lose the confidence to live. After that, Xiao Hua had never told anyone about all the difficulties he faced. It was rare for him to meet 2 immortals. The feeling of being a good teacher and helpful friend temporarily made Xiao Hua's heart calm down. However, immediately after, he caused trouble in the immortal palace, rushed to the end of the world, and besieged the immortal town. Until today, although he was finally able to stay with Zixia, The three continents had encountered a strange insect that they couldn't deal with. How could Xiao Hua not be tired? Chapter 4680. Xiao Hua had seen and experienced the apocalypse in the ruins, and he had also saved the ruins. However, at that time, Xiao Hua didn't have much affection for the ruins, and Lahua Heavenly Devil was only one person. However, the apocalypse in the three continents was different. There were simply too many strange insects, and they were simply too powerful. The battle in the Lingyun Side Hall had already shown Xiao Hua the tragic fate of the three continents. However, he still wanted to save the people of the three continents with his own strength. Xiao Hua was a human Mahayana realm cultivator, and his Dao heart was the strongest in the Daoist sect. However, he had to bear the burden of the billions of people of the three continents, and his Dao heart wasn't enough. He knew that in the long run, his Dao heart might turn into a devil, but if he turned into a devil for the sake of the billions of people of the three continents, what was there to pity? What was there to pity if his Dao heart was shattered for the sake of the people of the three continents? Princess Zi Xia felt the front of her body heat up. She knew that these were the tears in Xiao Hua's eyes. Princess Zi Xia's nose turned sour for no reason. She put more strength into her arms and hugged Xiao Hua's head. She seemed to see the weakness behind a strong man and the dangers behind a grand ascension stage cultivator. After half a cup of tea's worth of time, Princess Zi Xia whispered, "Xiao Hua, take a good rest. Let your heart calm down, let your pace slow down, let me slowly catch up to you. I know I can't do anything for you, and I can't do anything for the people of the three continents. However, don't worry, after you rest, go save the three continents. I will always wait for you, and when you need to rest, come back to me. Shin Shin, Shin Shin." Xiao Hua whispered, and didn't answer. "I'm here." Princess Zi Xia whispered, and kissed Xiao Hua's hair. "I'll always be here with you." After half a day, the waves of the West Sea were already monstrous, and the sky above the West Sea was already covered in rain. Under a ball of faint light, the pair of lovers hugged each other as if they could last forever. Finally, Xiao Hua opened his eyes and whispered, "Shin Shin, I'm going to save the three continents. Let me go first." En. Princess Zi Xia replied in a low voice as she let go of Xiao Hua's head. The wind quietly blew, causing Princess Zi Xia's body to feel a bit cold. A feeling of disappointment and frustration attacked her heart. Xiao Hua. Princess Zi Xia was somewhat flustered. She didn't dare to look at Xiao Hua. She whispered, "Are you all right?" "Thank you." Xiao Hua held Princess Zi Xia's hand and replied, "With you by my side, how could anything happen to me?" "That's good." Princess Zi Xia's heart was filled with sweetness, and she also held Xiao Hua's hand. After a short while, Princess Zi Xia said with concern, "Xiao Hua, I feel that you're not only mentally exhausted, but also. Have you cultivated too quickly, and your Dao heart is somewhat unstable?" Xiao Hua smiled slightly and said with a nod, "What you said is right. I'm just too ambitious. I want to do too much. My Dao heart is limited, and that's why it's unstable. However, since I've attained the Buddha fruit of Nanwu Merciful Guanyin Bodhisattva, I'm willing to place all living beings in my Dao heart. For them. I'm willing to break my heart." Boom. High in the sky, an indescribable law was born. It was like a thunderbolt, but also like a storm. When the law fell, the wind and rain within 10,000 miles were wiped away. When the law fell into Xiao Hua's body, a kind of fluctuation like boiling water was born in the space around Xiao Hua. Not good. Xiao Hua was startled. He hurriedly used the Fury of Thunder technique and activated the talisman left by Shuji. Whoosh! A layer of faint silver brilliance was born from the top of Xiao Hua's head. It was like flowing water that washed down. When it reached the bottom of Xiao Hua's feet, it simultaneously withdrew into Xiao Hua's body. The previous phenomenon disappeared in an instant. This is. Princess Zi Xia naturally didn't know what this law meant. She looked at Xiao Hua strangely, waiting for Xiao Hua's explanation. However, Xiao Hua only smiled slightly and didn't answer. He only looked at the gloomy rain nearby and asked, "I'm done resting. Zi Xia, accompany me to save the three continents." "Okay." Princess Zi Xia didn't ask any more questions. She pulled Xiao Hua's hand and flew to a place. The rain stopped, the waves stopped, the clouds dispersed, the sky opened, and the stars also came out. They saw a huge round moon hanging in the sky. Xiao Hua and Princess Xixia also stopped. Seeing that there were no reefs in the surroundings, and then looking at the huge round moon above their heads, Xiao Hua understood that this must be the location of the moon-embracing palace. Xiao Hua raised his hand and pointed at the round moon. He said with a smile, "Xixia, when I heard the name Moon-Embracing Palace, did you think of something?" "Oh, what did you think of?" Princess Xixia was startled and asked naturally. She thought that Xiao Hua thought of something amazing. However, Xiao Hua's answer made Princess Xixia not know whether to laugh or cry. "Doesn't Fairy Xingyu have moon in her name? She and Shu Ji are connected by heart. When I heard the name Moon-Embracing Palace that day, I immediately thought of Shu Ji hugging Fairy Xingyu. He, Ode to the Bronze Sparrow Terrace, you know." "Kai Kai." Princess Xixia's face blushed. She said with a smile, "You male cultivators think dirty. This moon-embracing palace was built by Fairy Xingyu. Even if she has feelings for Senior Shu Ji, she can't be so brazen in her name. Who knows?" Xiao Hua pinched his chin and said with a mischievous smile, "Let's go in and see, won't we know?" Seeing Xiao Hua's strange smile, how could Princess Xixia not know what Xiao Hua was thinking? She pinched Xiao Hua's arm and said reproachfully, "How is that possible? A female immortal's palace." Speaking until here, Princess Xixia understood a little. She said with a smile, "Darling, Xiao hasn't entered a female cultivator's palace yet? That's why you're so curious." Tch. Xiao Hua's face was full of disdain. He said, "I'm already a Mahayana cultivator. What haven't I seen?" He. Princess Xixia didn't expose Xiao Hua and only smiled slightly. Xiao Hua flipped his hand and took out one of Fairy Xingyue's tokens. He glanced at it and activated his dharmic powers, wanting to activate the restriction. Unfortunately, when his dharmic powers entered the token, it was like a clay ox entering the sea. There was no reaction. Damn it, is there a special magic art? Or does it need immortal qi? Xiao Hua was stunned. He rolled his eyes and thought for a moment. It seemed that Fairy Xingyu left in a hurry that day and didn't leave too many instructions. However, after thinking for a moment, Xiao Hua immediately urged the Fury of Thunder. Where the Fury of Thunder fell, the token immediately turned into the shape of a pentagonal star. It flew out from Xiao Hua's hand and rushed into the night sky. Boom! High up in the sky, the full moon that seemed to be within reach suddenly shook violently, and a huge shadow fell down like a giant star. Moreover, the closer the shadow was to Xiao Hua, the smaller it became. However, the pressure it exerted was not small at all. The space within 1,000 li showed signs of collapsing, and even the surface of the sea had a huge crater at this moment. Boom! The shadow crashed into the pentagonal star as expected. The star shattered, and the outline of a pentagonal star appeared in the void. However, the outline of the pentagonal star was still sealed. Divine sense and the naked eye couldn't penetrate it. Roar! The shadow of the full moon suddenly disappeared. The suppressed waves of the West Sea soared into the sky like a horned dragon, rushing toward the pentagonal void outline. Whoosh! After the waves washed over, a pentagonal void portal appeared from the outline. Inside the portal, a huge full moon also appeared. Let's go. Xiao Hua didn't dare to be negligent. He pulled Princess Xixia's hand and floated into the portal. Xiao Hua's figure fell into the portal. Without waiting for him to speak, Princess Xixia beside him cried out happily, "Xiao Hua, are you sure? This is the moon-embracing palace?" Inside the portal, it wasn't a simple space. It was a beach by the sea. The fine, soft, and even somewhat white sand was under Xiao Hua's feet. When he stepped on it, he left behind a pair of footprints. Far away from the fine white sand, layers of blue waves were surging towards Xiao Hua like a rising tide. In front of the head of the tide, bubbles mixed with strange seaweed landed on the beach. The sea surface inside the portal was different from the West Sea. There weren't any strong winds or waves. There were only fine ripples. In the distance between the sea and the sky, The sea surface was as tranquil as a woman's eyelashes. On the other side of the beach, there was a bunch of flowers piled up by the sea sand. This bunch of flowers was at least 1,000 jong in size. There were more than 100 flowers. The roots of all the flowers were inserted into the beach, and the blooming flower buds were blooming in midair. In each flower bud, there was a strange palace hall. And these palace halls were also piled up by the sea sand. The full moon was hanging in the sky. Its splendor was like water. It shone on the beach, sprinkled on the flowers, and even sprinkled on the 100 palace halls. Under the clear moonlight, it seemed as if the sand in the sea was sparkling. No matter if it was the flowers or the palace halls, they all gave birth to a kind of strange beauty. Looking at the casually piled up palace halls that looked like children playing on the beach, Xiao Hua touched his nose. He used his finger to point at the 3 big words protruding from the flowers. He smiled bitterly and said, "I can be sure that this is the moon-embracing palace." Ha ha! Princess Zi Xia laughed loudly. She pulled her hand out of Xiao Hua's hand and happily jumped around on the beach. She was like a little girl who had been freed from her restraints. She was wantonly indulging in her own laughter on the beach.